Chapter 1442. Devil Class and the others were all wearing the frost pearl. Because of this, they who were situated in the inferno nest would not be affected by the heat wave. To them, they didn't feel hot but instead felt extremely cool. Yiqing Luo's reply was reasonable. Zhou Mo had no way to pursue further as he squinted his phoenix eyes as he gave an evil charming smile. Student Yiqing Luo's luck is really not bad. Yiqing Luo smiled lightly. I think so too. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. But in their hearts, each of them had their own different thoughts. After resting for a while, Ghost Doctor didn't stay any longer. To let these students continue to lie down, they were even more unwilling to stand up. There was a possibility that before they reached their destination, these people would drink all the water they had. Looking at the sky, Ghost Doctor spoke in a deep voice, "Line up. Go." The students were in despair but they had no way to defy the order. They could only clench their teeth as they stood up and walked forward. They looked resentfully at the calm bunch of Devil Class students in front of them as they wanted to cry but had no tears. The students from the other academies couldn't bear it any longer as they squeezed to the side of Qianqian and the others as they asked softly, "You're all Heavenly Academy students, can you ask Devil Class, how on earth did they endure this kind of heat?" Qianqian was sweating profusely. The hot weather made her feel even more annoyed. Hearing someone mention asking her to go to the Devil Class at this time, her mood instantly exploded. "If you want to ask, go ask yourself." The students who were shouted at had their faces sunk. One by one, their disdainful gazes swept past Qianqian coldly as they ridiculed him politely. "You're not as good as Yiqing Luo, why are you getting angry at us? Do you really think you're the number one beauty? Why don't you take a look at your comical look?" I spit. In the hot weather, one's temper would explode at the slightest provocation. These few female students originally wanted to speak nicely and ask for some advice, to let everyone relax a little. Whoever knew that they were bombarded by Qianqian. Not as good as Yiqing Luo. Just based on her, what qualifications does she have to be compared with Yiqing Luo? She's not even fit to carry Yiqing Luo's shoes. Another female student chimed in. The way I see it, these students from the class of gods are nothing but a joke. One or two of them can't even compare to the toes of the Devil Class. Didn't you guys see Qianqian's embarrassing performance just now? How could she become the number one beauty of the Heavenly Academy with this appearance? I thought I could get into the academy and the class of gods with money, but now I can buy the title of the number one beauty with money. Sentence after sentence of ridicule caused Qianqian's face to turn red. When had Qianqian ever suffered such humiliation? All along, she had always been high and mighty, receiving the flattery of everyone. Over the years, Zhang Xian's participation in the Inter-Academy exchange had left a beautiful impression in the hearts of the students of the other academies. But this time, he had suffered such great humiliation. Everything was Yiqing Luo's fault. If it wasn't for Yiqing Luo, the one in the limelight today would be her, Qianqian. All of you, shut up. What nonsense are you spouting? Our Qianqian goddess is a goddess. If you want to bootlick the Devil Class, then go to the front and do it. Don't be an eyesore. Seeing this, Su Xiaoyan immediately grabbed Qianqian's arm and stood up for her. Su Xiaoyan didn't want to stand out. But now, she was already on the same boat as Qianqian. Chapter 1443. The commotion at the back did not affect the neatly organized team at the front. Gue Wu and Zhou Mo could not be bothered with the students' dispute. The four instructors also did not bother about it. The Devil Class students could vaguely hear that the reason for the commotion was related to the Devil Class. But they pretended not to hear. In this hot weather, they still had the leisure to quarrel. After wasting so much saliva, when all the water in the water source pearl was extracted, they would know how stupid their actions were. They walked for another 5 kilometers or so. Those students finally did not have the energy to make a ruckus. The entire team once again fell into silence. They only felt that their legs were like lead balls, unable to move even half a step. The students' willpower was slowly being worn down. The number of students who fell to the ground increased. But Guiwu did not have the intention to stop and rest. He continued to lead the way, minding his own business. The wind brought his deep and steady voice. There is still another 20 kilometers ahead, we will rest there today. 20 kilometers. Oh my God. I'm not going. I'm not going. I'm not going either. So what if I die? If we continue, I'm going to lose my life. When the students heard this number, they were all stunned. One by one, they immediately knelt on the ground. They would rather die here than take another step forward. What kind of training was this? Early in the morning, they were made to wear a 70-kilogram soft armor. After walking for half a day, then they changed to the blazing flame nest and continued to run with heavy loads. F***K. Was he trying to train them to be little cross-country athletes? All this training had nothing to do with them raising their profound chi. Just as the students were grumbling in their hearts, they heard Zhou Mo's clear voice again. 20 kilometers ahead, there is a tent that we have set up. Inside, we have stored lunch for today, and sufficient water. Only those students who have reached the destination are qualified to eat lunch and drink water. After a pause, he smiled and continued, I believe that the students' water source pearls did not store much water. Not only did they not store much. What's more, they did not even think of storing water. Who would have thought that Guiwu would suddenly bring them to the wilderness for training? He had to admit that Zhou Mo's words were a blatant temptation. Lying here, they could only wait for death. However, as long as he persevered for another 20 kilometers, not only would he be able to eat, but he would also be able to replenish his water supply. When faced with a multiple-choice question, everyone would undoubtedly choose the latter. This was undoubtedly an incentive. The students who had been howling about dying here gritted their teeth and stood up one by one, continuing to walk behind the group. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but gave a thumbs up to Zhou Mo's move. He still didn't know whether Zhou Mo was telling the truth or not. However, regardless of whether it was true or not, looking at how the students were moving with all their might, it was enough to prove that Zhou Mo's move was correct. Devil Class's students had already shaken off the students behind them by a huge distance. Just about 10 kilometers away from the destination, Yiqing Luo suddenly felt an intense restlessness. Something wet suddenly covered her neck. That damp hair, with a sultry feeling. Even if she was wearing the frost pearl, Yiqing Luo still felt a wave of heat from her neck. Woo, woo, woo. Chapter 1444. Chi-Chi. Yiqing Luo stretched out her hand and touched the bundle of hair hanging on her neck. It was Chi-Chi. Chi-Chi crawled out of the pet space on her own. Chi-Chi is turning into barbecued meat. Chi-Chi looked at Yiqing Luo with an aggrieved look. Chi-Chi is so hot. Touching the wet fur on her hand, Yiqing Luo could tell that Chi-Chi was about to turn into roasted meat. In this climate, there was even a thick layer of hair on his back. Yiqing Luo took out a frost pearl from the profound phoenix ring and stuffed it into Chi-Chi's mouth. After sucking on the ice pearl for a while, Chi-Chi finally regained her spirit. Its little body rubbed against Yiqing Luo's shoulder. Its wet fur was so sticky that Yiqing Luo couldn't help but stretch out her hand to pull Chi-Chi down. Why did you come out? Yiqing Luo asked Chi-Chi. Guiwu and Zhou Mo were still up ahead. Yiqing Luo could not talk to Chi-Chi directly. Otherwise, if others knew that Chi-Chi could speak human language, they would definitely be shocked. He was afraid that there would be endless trouble. Chi-Chi felt the calling and thought that Master was summoning Chi-Chi, so Chi-Chi came out. Chi-Chi blinked its tiger eyes and looked at Yi-Ching Luo in an adorable manner, but, after coming out, Chi-Chi then felt that it was not Master's summon. Summon. Is it the summoning you felt before? Chi-Chi shook her head. It's even stronger than that summoning feeling. It was as if it was right in front of him. That's why Chi-Chi thought Master was summoning Chi-Chi. Close at hand. Yi-Ching Luo narrowed her eyes, as she carefully pondered over Chi-Chi's words. Ever since they arrived at the South Wave Continent, Chi-Chi could sense that a certain place in the South Wave Continent was constantly calling for Chi-Chi. Yi-Ching Luo had already asked Wind to investigate that place. After arriving at the Flame Lair, Chi-Chi actually felt that the summoning was getting stronger. And he even thought that she was the one who was summoning Chi-Chi. In other words, the thing that summoned Chi-Chi was in the Fire Lair. She had asked Wind to follow the direction that Chi-Chi had pointed out to the location where they were headed. Was it the Flame Lair? This matter was too much of a coincidence. Chi-Chi, go back to the pet space first and bring a frost pearl for Shijue. Yi-Ching Luo placed Chi-Chi on her shoulder. Her half-squinted eyes were suffused with a glimmer of brilliance. Chi-Chi, don't forget to accurately sense the direction where you are being summoned. Chi-Chi let out a low howl. With a frost pearl in its mouth, it was about to return to the pet space. However, he heard a mocking voice. This is training, not a field trip. You even brought your pet. Zi Qianqian quickly walked over with the help of Su Xiaoyan and the others. Zi Qianqian was sweating profusely, and her clothes were already soaked in sweat, sticking to her beautiful body. She had already washed away the colorful stains on her face with water. A beauty was indeed a beauty. Even without makeup, her appearance was still extremely beautiful. Coupled with this wet and seductive look, she really did look a little charming. After arguing with the female students, Zi Qianqian found it increasingly tiring. She didn't even have the strength to control her profound qi to resist the heat wave. Seeing that the devil class was still in high spirits, without any signs of heat, Zi Qianqian finally couldn't take it any longer, as she wanted to ask Yi-Ching Luo if she had secretly cheated or played any tricks. But she saw Yi-Ching Luo hugging a palm-sized white cat, talking intimately to it. Chapter 1445. The students of the various academies were drenched in sweat. They were on the verge of losing their lives. And Yi-Ching Luo was still able to carry a cat, playing and laughing. When Zi Qianqian saw this scene, he felt that it was unfair in his heart, and words of mockery had already escaped his mouth. Yi-Ching Luo shot a glance at Zi Qianqian as she leisurely carried Chi-Chi in her arms and stroked its fur. Her lips curled into a faint smile. Whoever I bring along has nothing to do with student Zi Qianqian. You're a student of the Heavenly Academy. This special training is very important. If you bring a magical beast with you, then forget it. However, with such a pet, are you trying to drag the academy down? Zi Qianqian frowned and reprimanded him in a serious manner. When Yi-Ching Luo heard that, she couldn't help but burst out laughing. Till now, Zi Qianqian was still talking to her about students from the Heavenly Academy. Talk to her and drag the academy back. The person who was least qualified to say such a thing was Zi Qianqian, all right? When she was instigating Su Xiaoyan to disregard the reputation of the Heavenly Academy and slander the devil class, why didn't Zi Qianqian think of the Heavenly Academy? When he instigated Su Xiaoyan to be the last to arrive at the training ground, causing the Heavenly Academy's students to not be able to have lunch together, why didn't he think that he was dragging the Heavenly Academy down? In fact, isn't the one dragging the Heavenly Academy down you from the class of gods, Zi Qianqian? Yi-Ching Luo raised her brows as she sneered, if you have the energy to find trouble with me, you might as well save some energy. There's still a few kilometers to go, I'm worried that in the end You'll be carried to the destination. You. Zi Qianqian's face darkened as he gritted his teeth and glared at Yiqing Luo. I know my stamina very well, I don't need you to be a busybody. Yiqing Luo laughed softly as she looked at Zi Qianqian as though she was looking at an idiot. Did you think that after reaching the destination, you would be able to recover your energy? Our Heavenly Academy can't even have lunch because of someone. Zi Qianqian felt a lump in his throat. The words were stuck in his throat, and he couldn't spit them out. That was right, the Heavenly Academy did not have the right to have lunch. That was to say, even if they arrived at their destination. The Heavenly Academy could only starve and watch the students of other academies eat. There was no chance for them to replenish their strength. The feeling of hunger and pain in his abdomen expanded in an instant. At this moment, Zi Qianqian was filled with regret. How could he be so stupid? For the sake of taking revenge on the devil class, he actually threw himself into this mess. Yiqing Luo didn't bother about Zi Qianqian's gloomy expression as she carried Qi and walked past her. Just as she returned to the group, Yiqing Luo saw a pair of interested eyes staring at her. Qi in her arms. It was Zhou Mo's gaze. Ah Wu, look at that little guy, doesn't it look like? Zhou Mo nudged the ghost martial artist with his hand. Gue Wu lightly swept a glance at Qi, before his pupils abruptly contracted. That is. Gue Wu's gaze gradually turned grave as he strode towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Zhou Mo pulled him back in time. Don't be impulsive. That's just a little kid. We're only guessing right now. That's clearly the holy beast, the white tiger. Gue Wu's brows were tightly knitted together as his pair of malicious eyes swept past Yiqing Luo and then looked at Qi who was in her arms. She actually possesses the sacred beast white tiger. How could the holy beast white tiger sign a contract with such an ordinary girl? Chapter 1446. Gue Wu turned silent. It was about a young girl who was not even 16 years old, contracting the holy beast white tiger, controlling the legendary divine dragon, and obtaining a divine artifact. It was not that he had never heard of it. However, he subconsciously believed that this was just a premeditated propaganda method. After all, no one in the world had actually seen the so-called holy beast white tiger. Perhaps that girl had only contracted a slightly higher grade tiger beast, and she had deliberately made it look like the holy beast white tiger to intimidate those who didn't understand. But now, he saw with his own eyes the white tiger that looked like a cat. Gue Wu had to admit it. It was the legendary white tiger, one of the 4 great sacred beasts. No one else had seen it before. But he had definitely seen it before. That also meant, the rumor about the tomb of the Ling King was indeed true. That so-called divine dragon, could it be, one of the 4 great sacred beasts, the Azure Dragon? If that was the case, Gue Wu's expression suddenly turned grave as he turned his head to look at Zhou Mo. I don't know anything. That's your upper realm's business. I'm just a normal person. Don't ask me. Zhou Mo quickly cut off the haunted house's question. After that, his narrow and long phoenix eyes narrowed, and his face didn't have the usual teasing and careless expression. What replaced it was a deep heaviness. Of course, regardless of whether she is or not, these words should not be mentioned in the lower realm. Gue Wu pursed his lips. His gaze turned and gazed deeply at Yiqing Luo for some time. Clenching his fists, he averted his gaze and stopped probing. It wasn't that Yiqing Luo hadn't felt Gue Wu's increasingly naked gaze. She was not used to this kind of intense gaze, as if it could see through her soul. Previously, Gue Wu had been staring at Qi. And now he was staring at her. Could it be, did Gue Wu discover Qi's identity? Cough cough. In her mind, old man Song's voice suddenly sounded, Little Luo, you have to be careful. Recently, Old Man Song had always been cultivating in seclusion within the Azure Dew bracelet. He said that he needed to raise his mental power as soon as possible so that he could condense his spirit body and walk out of the Azure Dew bracelet to move around in a certain range around Yiqing Luo. Apart from the occasional conversation with Old Man Song, she hadn't heard Old Man Song take the initiative to look for her in a very long time. That ghost martial artist. Old Man Song seemed to be hesitating on what words to use to describe him. After a long while, he finally said, "Don't get too close to him." Yiqing Luo was at a loss. "Old Man Song, do you know him?" "I don't know him." His straightforward and decisive answer made others even more suspicious. But Yiqing Luo didn't continue to question. Old Man Song would not harm her. Since Old Man Song had told her not to get too close to Gue Wu, it was definitely because of Old Man Song. Seeing Yiqing Luo's silence, Old Man Song sighed and said, "He towards you, although he doesn't have any malicious intentions, but it's better to minimize contact." "I understand." Yiqing Luo nodded and placed Chi on her shoulder. "Qing Luo." Long Yunzhan walked behind her as he suppressed his voice and asked, "What happened to Chi?" All the students in the devil class knew Chi's identity. He also knew that Chi was very obedient and would not leave the pet space on her own. Under such circumstances, it was impossible for Yiqing Luo to summon Chi. There was only one possibility. It was Chi herself who came out from the pet space. Yiqing Luo stroked Chi's wet fur. "Nothing much, it's just too hot, so I came out to get some fresh air." Although her words were so calm. However, her eyes flickered slightly. Chapter 1447. Such a large group, under the speed of a tortoise, gradually arrived at their destination. Yiqing Luo and the rest walked right at the front, and from afar, they could see a large piece of empty land, where a large wooden shed was built. It looked to be able to accommodate 700 to 800 people. She gauged the environment of the wooden shed. Yiqing Luo had a bad premonition in her heart. Accommodating 700 to 800 people meant that half of the students had no way to rest. If they wanted to enter the wooden shed to rest, based on ghost martial artist and these instructors' nature, there would definitely be a competition or training. Why must they let a group of students kill each other? Yiqing Luo and the rest followed the instructors and were the first batch of people to reach the wooden shed. Behind them was a long line of people. The students used all their energy, as they tried their best to take a step forward. Those students, when they saw the wooden shed which was just a few feet away, they were filled with even more motivation. Just at this moment, Instructor Luo wiped off the sweat on his forehead, as he looked at the few rows of people behind him, as he laughed loudly. "Devil class's aptitude is indeed not bad. The weighted soft armor and the blazing flame lair didn't have much effect on you. Not bad, not bad." His voice was thick. Through the transmission of profound qi, instantly the entire blazing flame lair's outer skies resounded with Instructor Luo's voice. When those students heard it, they instantly felt a deafening sound. When they heard Instructor Luo praising Devil class, they instantly felt a sense of embarrassment, as it surged up their hearts. Instructor Luo's words, was he ridiculing them that they were not as good as Devil class? Although, this was the truth. But, no one was willing to admit it. And at this moment, no matter what, they would not give up. This time, there are a total of 790 beds in the wooden shed, which means, there are 790 students, who can lie down and rest at night. The rest of the students will settle their own resting places. Instructor Luo's deep voice continued to ring. Yiqing Luo's premonition had come true. The other students' hearts suddenly trembled, as they felt inexplicably uneasy. Students who arrive at the destination earlier will be able to enjoy the beds in the wooden shed, regardless of school, regardless of class, only based on who arrived first. After a pause, Instructor Luo said meaningfully, "Of course, you can also snatch the beds of other students. As long as you have the ability, under the precondition that you are not allowed to use your profound energy and do not cripple, seriously injure, or endanger someone's life, you can use any method to snatch the beds of the students who have beds." As soon as Instructor Luo's voice fell, the students of the various academies were shocked. What kind of damned rule was this? 790 beds. This meant that at least 600 students had no beds. He was the first to arrive at the wooden shed, but he still had to guard against the 600 or so students snatching his bed. This was really forcing them to kill each other. In this world, the weak are prey to the strong, and the strong are respected. If you don't have absolute strength, you won't have the qualifications to protect what belongs to you. Gue Wu directly ignored the resentful gazes of the students, as well as their bitter expressions. The university students were unable to refute Gue Wu's words. He didn't have powerful strength. They would not be able to protect what belonged to them. Gue Wu was teaching them the way to survive in the Jianghu. Even if the bed would be snatched away in the end. But there were still quite a number of students who tried their best to push away the students in front, as they tried their best to sprint towards their destination. Quite a number of students who were already exhausted, at this moment, unknowingly found the strength to actually start running. When Yiqing Luo saw this scene, she could only sigh. Chapter 1448. Yiqing Luo and the rest, along with Gue Wu and the rest, arrived at the destination one after the other. Devil class had the right to choose the beds. Yiqing Luo took a look at those beds. This was a temporary large wooden shed. It didn't look too beautiful, but it was still considered sturdy. Under the wooden shed, there were beds one after another. It was about the size of a normal man. On each bed, there was a thin blanket. Under this kind of environment, such beds were indeed considered luxurious. Yiqing Luo led the devil class, as she chose the 60 over beds at the corner. Then, he pasted his name on every bed. Only after they had allocated the beds did the next wave of students arrive one after another. The students were already exhausted. Gue Wu looked at the students that were still doing their best to flock over, and his calm voice resounded through the sky. "Students that have arrived can take a short break, or head to the front to collect your lunch from the head academy's elder, as well as your own water bag." Hearing this, the students' eyes were almost sparkling. The students who had already arrived, casually pasted their names on the beds, as they couldn't wait to collect their lunch and madly sprinted towards the direction. The rest time is 2 hours. Gue Wu didn't stop the chaotic situation. 2 hours later, today's special training will begin. 2 hours. Special training after that. Surely it wasn't a joke. The students who had already arrived, as their legs went soft, as they laid face down on the ground. As for the students who received their lunch, they almost dropped the lunch box in their hands. Those students who were still quite a distance away from their destination, were all waiting for death. They were as tired as dogs, all right. Just resting for 2 hours and they had to undergo special training. How would they have the energy? Their hearts were filled with resentment, but they had no choice but to accept it. As Heavenly Academy student Su Xiaoyan was the last to arrive at the training grounds during the morning assembly, so Heavenly Academy has cancelled her lunch rights. Gue Wu's next sentence finally made the students from the various academies feel better. Human nature was like this. Couldn't bear to see others doing better than themselves. Even if Yiqing Luo had helped them in the actual battle with the instructors yesterday. Even if Yiqing Luo's ability made everyone fearful. But these students were already filled with jealousy towards the devil class who had been in the limelight. They couldn't wait for the devil class to suddenly fall, so that they could laugh at them. Behind them, Zi Qianqian and the others, who were trying their best to move forward, heard this, and their expressions darkened. Especially Zi Qianqian, he felt like he had shot himself in the foot. She was extremely regretful now. How could he be so stupid as to instigate Su Xiaolian to be the last student to arrive at the training ground? As a result, he was half dead from exhaustion. His stomach was extremely hungry, and he could only watch helplessly as the other students ate. Furthermore, next, there would be special training. Just thinking about this. Zi Qianqian's legs turned to jelly. Isn't Yi Qing Luo that slut very arrogant? If we don't let them eat lunch, they will definitely clamor with the instructors, right? Su Xiaolian felt a chill down her spine under the horrifying gazes of the other Heavenly Academy students. She quickly hid in Zi Qianqian's direction. Su Xiaolian believed him. If they weren't in the middle of training, these Heavenly Academy students would definitely hate her to the point of killing her. Chapter 1449. Right. Yi Qing Luo that slut had always been arrogant. If the devil class couldn't have lunch, Yi Qing Luo would definitely fight for it. At that time, she would fan the flames. Yi Qing Luo would definitely receive a more severe punishment. Thinking of this, Zi Qianqian suddenly felt unlimited potential. Gritting his teeth, he sped towards the direction of the wooden shed. The students who had arrived were wolfing down the food in the lunch box. Although it was a very simple and ordinary civilian dish. But the exhausted students were eating happily. There was no longer the arrogance of yesterday in the canteen of the training grounds, seeing porridge and vegetables and losing their appetite. The air was filled with the aroma of the food. It made the stomachs of the students who had yet to arrive grumble. Zi Qianqian and the 10 over intermediate class 2 students had finally arrived at their destination. Before they could even catch their breath, they saw Yi Qing Luo, who was standing at the same spot, watching the students eating, suddenly walking towards the direction of Gui Wu. Su Xiaolian shook Zi Qianqian's arm agitatedly. The group of people immediately looked over. Indeed, as they had expected. Based on Yi Qing Luo's character, she would definitely turn the world upside down. Zi Qianqian hid the joy on his face and put on his usual aloof look as he walked towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. Master Gui Wu. Yi Qing Luo's cold voice did not have any fear towards Gui Wu, but it contained a sense of respect towards her teacher. Gui Wu was deep in thought. Suddenly hearing Yi Qing Luo's voice, he raised his eyes and met her cold gaze. That pair of long and narrow eyes were clean and pure, without any other impurities. It was like a calm lake without the slightest ripple. Gui Wu was stunned. He didn't know how long it had been since he had such a calm gaze. Those people would only look away helplessly after meeting his gaze. However, this young girl was able to remain so calm. Facing his oppressive aura, she was fearless. Thinking of the day before yesterday, when he and Zhou Mo hid near Yi Qing Luo's room and were discovered by her. He had a faint guess in his heart. But felt that it was too ridiculous. Master Gui Wu. Seeing Gui Wu staring at her with a burning gaze but not saying a word, Yi Qing Luo called out again. Coincidentally, Zi Qianqian had already rushed to their side. I say, student Yi Qing Luo, rules are rules, you. Master Gui Wu, may we collect our water bags? Zi Qianqian and Yi Qing Luo's voices rang at the same time. Zi Qianqian's voice stopped abruptly when he heard Yi Qing Luo's question. You, what did you just say? Zi Qianqian could not believe his ears. How could Yi Qing Luo be so polite? And he didn't ask for a set of food for those bastards in devil class. Yi Qing Luo couldn't be bothered with Zi Qianqian as she quietly looked at Gui Wu. Gui Wu came back to his senses, wrinkling his eyebrows. He nodded his head, sure. Thank you, Master Gui Wu. Yi Qing Luo politely nodded her head. When the students of devil class heard that, they immediately bowed respectfully towards Gui Wu. Thank you, Master Gui Wu. More than 60 people spoke in unison. Many people turned their gazes over. In his heart, he was wondering what the devil class was up to this time. Following that, they saw the group of people from the devil class walking towards the direction to collect their meals. Isn't the devil class students from the Heavenly Academy? Haven't they been banned from having lunch? Why can they still collect their lunch? What kind of punishment is this? I'm not convinced. That's right, Master Gue Wu personally set the rules, how can it be gone just like that? Chapter 1450. Facing the devil class students who were better than them in everything. The students of the various academies spared no effort in finding ways to crush them. Their motive for coming here. It was to bring glory to the academy and for their own future, to add a glory that could be sung. Everything had been stolen by the devil class, which was the Heavenly Academy. How were they going to answer to the academy? Even if Yiqing Luo had helped them yesterday. That gratitude and worship had been depleted under their selfish thoughts. It was not easy to suppress the Heavenly Academy on the matter of the lunch ban. It was rare for the students from the various academies to work together to stop the students from the devil class. Shut up. Instructor Luo was also carrying a lunchbox and was stuffing his rice in a rude manner. Hearing those students' indignant cries, his love for young students with potential made him defend them angrily. Don't say that devil class isn't collecting their lunch now. Even if they collect it, that's a matter of course. What's the point of rules? To the strong, ability is the rule. Which one of you can be like devil class, wearing a weighted soft armor and keep up with my footsteps? I'll give you another set of lunch. Instructor Luo's rough voice made the entire crowd's discussion stop abruptly. The students shrunk their necks and didn't dare to open their mouths. Indeed, none of them could do it. As for Instructor Luo, he had no intention to let those troublemakers off. If you can't do it, then shut up. Look at devil class's students, some of them are even wearing 2 sets of weighted soft armor. And look at you. Tell me, devil class students are collecting their lunch, isn't it a matter of course? He was protective. He didn't forget to pull the surrounding students to help him protect them. The students lowered their heads, not even daring to breathe loudly. Is it? Instructor Luo frowned as he bellowed furiously. Those students immediately straightened their backs, yes. Hearing the echoes, Instructor Luo's expression then eased up and didn't say another word. The students had grievances in their hearts but they didn't dare to vent it out. They could only use a vengeful gaze to stare fiercely at Yiqing Luo's direction. Zi Qianqian saw this and his heart overflowed with ecstasy. Yiqing Luo, that slut, really liked to be in the limelight. As a result, they had become the target of public criticism. She wanted to see just how powerful Yiqing Luo was. He could withstand the jealousy and resentment from the students of the various academies. The students of devil class each received a water bag. The water bag was about the size of 2 palms, and it was filled to the brim. The greatest need in the flame lair was water. And in a situation where there was no glacial ice pearl, this bag of water would at most, after this meal, it was completely wiped out. The other students did not understand the importance of water. But Yiqing Luo had already explained it through the mercenary group badge. The devil class students did not waste this bag of water as they kept it all into their space pockets. Seeing the actions of the devil class's students, those students who had grudges in their hearts, slowly shifted their gazes away. The rules only forbid lunch. They were not forbidden from collecting water bags. Devil class's actions could not be considered as violating Ghost Warrior's rules. Naturally, they didn't mind. The focus of the students was that the students from the devil class had received their water bags. Chapter 1451. This class absolutely wasn't their first time undergoing this kind of outdoor training. Every single one of their performances made them feel amazed. A few of the drill instructors kept flipping through the information regarding the devil class in their minds. The more they thought about this mysterious class, the more they felt that there was an expert guiding them. If these instructors knew that these students had only followed Yiqing Luo to the magic beast forest and other dangerous places, to stay for 1 or 2 times, they had already developed this habit. Those instructors would definitely shout out excitedly, "A bunch of geniuses. Master Gui Wu." Just as the few teachers were feeling extremely complicated, they heard a clear voice ringing. "Student Yiqing Luo, is there anything else?" Gui Wu raised his brows, as he asked with interest. Yiqing Luo smiled politely. "During the rest time, can I bring devil class students for a walk nearby?" "Where do you want to go?" Gui Wu's malicious eyes suddenly flashed a ray of brilliance. Yiqing Luo was neither servile nor overbearing. "A foreign place, we're not used to it, so we want to walk around, to adapt to the life here. The surrounding area is protected by the Elder's enchantment, so we won't go too far." Gui Wu narrowed his eyes, as he nodded after some time. "Pay attention to your safety." This wasn't the special training time. The students weren't willing to use the rest time to rest, so he wouldn't obstruct them. Yiqing Luo bowed politely again, and immediately led the devil class students, as they walked towards another direction. In the flame nest, the temperature was extremely high, but the trees were lush, as though it was a forest standing above the sea of fire. Yiqing Luo and the 60 over people, after passing through the stretch of lush trees, disappeared without a trace. That bunch of students were dumbstruck, not taking advantage of the rest time to have a good rest. What were devil class students trying to do? Zi Qianshan's expression was gloomy. The scene in her mind ultimately didn't play out as she wished. She stared at Yiqing Luo's departing figure, as she clenched her fists tightly. Just as she was about to chase up, her stomach gave out a goo-goo sound. After a period of torture, Zi Qianshan was already trembling from hunger. How would she have the energy to chase after devil class? Yiqing Luo and the rest walked one round around the cold surroundings. Yiqing Luo was explaining on how to memorize all the routes in such a complicated terrain. The youths in devil class listened extremely seriously. And in his mind, he learnt Yiqing Luo's method, sketching out the places that he had walked past, in his mind. The temperature of the fire nest was extremely high. Trees that could grow in this temperature also contained extremely strong heat. If this kind of tree was used to start a fire, it would definitely catch on fire. After walking one round around the outer perimeter, Yiqing Luo had already memorized the rough terrain completely in her mind. He calculated the time. Not even half the time had passed. They still had an hour left. After walking around the periphery, Chi also felt that the feeling of being summoned did not change at all. That was to say, the power that had summoned Chi was inside the fire lair. Inside the flame lair, there must be a lot of danger. After all, the so-called prophecy of the descent of the divine item was within the fire lair. None of the people sent by the various forces returned alive. One could imagine that the interior of the fire nest was definitely not simple. Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly trembled as her slender hand immediately pressed against her chest. Chapter 1452. Wind had followed the direction which Chi had provided and went to search for that place. The various powerhouses men were unable to come out from the blazing flame nest alive. Then Wind he. This thought made Yiqing Luo inexplicably flustered. Wind was Ah Xian's man. He was placed by Ah Xian's side to protect her. If something happened to Wind, how was she going to answer to Dmo Xian? What's the matter? Long Yunzhan had been paying attention to Yiqing Luo's expression, and on seeing her suddenly stopping, he immediately asked. Yiqing Luo opened her mouth but immediately pursed her pink lips. The existence of the Dark Guard was extremely secretive. Even if it was her own brother. One of the Imperial Palace's 4 great guardians' dark guard was by her side. She couldn't let them know. Yiqing Luo took a look at the time and clenched her fists tightly as she shook her head. Bring the students to walk around nearby first. I'll rush back before the training starts. Saying that, Yiqing Luo didn't wait for Long Yunjian's reply as she turned around and directly flashed, disappearing into the direction of the dense forest. Qing Luo. Long Yunjian only had time to shout out and saw Yiqing Luo's figure, disappearing in front of his eyes. What's the matter? Yan Xiaoyi frowned as she looked at the direction where Yiqing Luo disappeared. Where is Qing Luo going? Long Yunjian shook his head. Her complexion isn't very good, I'm a little worried. Kitty, go chase after sister. Long Yunjian's words had yet to end when he saw a greenish-white figure, flashed past his eyes. That sweet voice made the few of them stunned. Kitty. Long Yunjian frowned as he cried out sharply, come back. However, the only response to Long Yunjian was that flickering grass and trees. The atmosphere of the devil class's students instantly became rather solemn. For some time, no one dared to open their mouths to break the silent atmosphere. All the students could tell that the current Long Yunjian was extremely angry. Class monitor. Yan Xiaoyi looked at the devil class's students who stood rooted to the ground, not daring to move as she took a deep breath. Qing Luo will be fine. Kitty's nose is very sensitive and only she can chase up to Qing Luo, don't worry. Long Yunjian's pupils contracted. He stared unblinkingly at the direction where Yiqing Luo had left, as his azure blue eyes, as though it was sparkling. After a long time, he withdrew his gaze. His entire body tensed up like a block of iron. He bellowed, let's go back. With that, he turned around and strode in the direction of the wooden shed. Tong Ziqing immediately jogged up to her as she cautiously shouted, class monitor, don't worry, Qing Luo knows her limits. If after the break time, Qing Luo still hasn't returned, we can seek help from Master Gui Wu. Long Yunjian ignored Tong Ziqing's words. With a gloomy face, he walked very quickly. It was as if he didn't care about the girl behind him who was trying to catch up to him. Looking at that cold and hard side profile, Tong Ziqing felt a sour feeling in her heart. She knew that right now, Long Yunjian's thoughts were all on Yiqing Luo. Long Yunjian would not stop. He wouldn't even look at her, because she wasn't Yiqing Luo. But, as long as she could stay by Long Yunjian's side, even if he ignored her, she would gladly endure it. Shrubs, grass, lush trees. This kind of terrain, to Yiqing Luo, was the best terrain. One must know that in the 21st century, she was once thrown into the wild forest by that bunch of old men from the Yi family, and left to roam for 3 days and 3 nights. Over there, it wasn't like now. To be able to have Qi, a sacred beast to boost her might. To have profound Qi, to wave a hand to repel a wave of wild beasts. Chapter 1453. At that time, she was bare-handed. On her entire body, there were only 3 pieces of chocolate. Just like that, she entered the wild forest. She wanted to survive. She wanted to survive in the mouths of those vicious wild beasts. She had to make use of her own skills and the surrounding terrain to create more chances of survival. This kind of grass in the blazing flame nest had no effect on Yiqing Luo at all. Following the aura of the barrier, her figure was agile as she speedily shuttled through those grass and trees. In just a short moment, she had already rushed to the boundary of the Elder's barrier. As long as she passed through this barrier, she would enter the inner part of the blazing flame nest. But how to pass through the barrier and not attract the attention of the Elder? The barrier around this place was jointly established by the 6 elders of the main institute. As long as a student or anything else came into contact with the barrier, the 6 elders would immediately sense it. forcefully breaking through the barrier. Let's not talk about whether she could succeed or not. If she really used force, the elders would definitely sense it and rush over to stop her. By then, she would really not be able to explain herself. Master, Master. Chi-Chi's crisp voice was heard on her shoulder. Chi-Chi felt it again. That summoning feeling is right in front and it's very strong. Yiqing Luo's expression congealed. Indeed, her guess was right. That summoning force was emitted from the inner part of the blazing flame nest. Most likely. This force was the southern continent's imperial tutor's prophecy of the descent of the divine object. This thought made Yiqing Luo increasingly worried about Wind's safety. So many powerful high-leveled cultivators. Under this force, no one could survive. No matter how powerful Wind was. He was still a 17 to 18-year-old youngster. With this thought in mind, Yiqing Luo's heart was getting more and more anxious. Sister. Suddenly, a soft petite body covered her from behind. Two soft arms circled around her waist. Yiqing Luo's body tensed up and immediately felt a familiar feeling as she calmed down. But her expression was solemn as she pried open the hands on her waist. Kitty, why are you following me? The person behind her was Kitty Lee. She wasn't surprised that Kitty Lee would follow her. Kitty Lee's sense of smell was very sensitive. Furthermore, she had the nature of a cat, so she could easily move through the forest. But Yiqing Luo had not expected Kitty Lee to choose to follow her. Kitty Lee blinked her spirited cat eyes. Because she was shuttling through the forest, the headscarf covering her ears had long been lost somewhere. That pair of black ears were exposed right in front of Yiqing Luo's eyes. Sister, Kitty can feel that you're worried about something. Kitty can also feel your uneasiness and panic. Kitty Lee wiggled her ears. Kitty is very worried about Big Sis. I can't let Big Sis be alone. Cats had the most intuitive sense of human emotional changes. It was because she sensed the helplessness and panic in Yiqing Luo's heart, that was why Kitty Lee didn't say a single word and chased up to Yiqing Luo's footsteps. His sister had always been confident and strong. Will have such emotions. No matter what, Kitty Lee could not allow her sister to wander around this dangerous place alone. Feeling Kitty Lee's undisguised concern, Yiqing Luo's heart softened a little as she rubbed Kitty Lee's head lovingly. I've made Kitty Lee worried, don't worry, I'm fine. Chapter 1454. The sincerity in her eyes made Yiqing Luo laugh out involuntarily. She rubbed Kitty Lee's hand and softened her strength. Her palm brushed past that furry ear and she couldn't help but pinched it. Since we've already followed you here, I'm worried to let you go back alone. Kitty Lee's little ears twitched, as though Yiqing Luo's pinching had tickled her. A pair of lively cat-like eyes sparkled with a radiant luster. This obedient look made Yiqing Luo burst out laughing. But you must promise me, no matter what happens, you must stay by my side and you're not allowed to act alone. All right. Kitty Lee stood upright as she replied loudly. Sure. Yiqing Luo immediately raised her finger and made a shushing gesture. Don't let those elders find out, don't alert them. Kitty Lee's eyes widened as she covered her mouth with both hands. Yiqing Luo rubbed her head and immediately continued to search for a way to pass through the barrier. Sister, Kitty Lee can bring you over. Kitty Lee carefully leaned towards Yiqing Luo and said softly. You know how to break the barrier. Yiqing Luo raised her brows. A beast from the cat clan could break the barrier. Kitty Lee shook her head. Kitty Lee doesn't know how to break the barrier, but Kitty Lee can help you conceal your presence. Even if those old fogies found out, they would only treat it as an ordinary magical beast that accidentally touched the barrier. The flame nest had rather high-leveled magical beasts or mirage beasts. Those magical beasts or mirage beasts that could survive here all had fire-attributed abilities. Therefore, Kitty Lee's idea could be tried. Seeing that she could help Yiqing Luo, Kitty Lee excitedly stretched out her hand. That fair little hand, in a blink of an eye, turned into a furry cat's paw. At the same time, Kitty Lee's clear pupils were gradually dyed with a devilish red glow. The red glow gradually spread and filled her eyeballs. Yiqing Luo was very close. She could clearly feel a beast clan's presence emitting from Kitty Lee. The cat's sharp claws forcefully left a crack on the transparent barrier. Yiqing Luo had yet to react. A furry tail wrapped around Yiqing Luo's slender waist. His body felt light and his feet were suspended in the air. In the blink of an eye, he had plunged into a forest. Far away in the wooden shed, the 6 elders who were resting with their eyes closed suddenly opened their eyes. Who touched the barrier? An elder berated harshly. Gue Wu and Zhou Mo looked at each other and subconsciously looked in the direction of the devil class. The students of the devil class had yet to return. Could it be that they had touched the barrier? Gue Wu's eyebrows were tightly knitted together as he walked in front of an elder. With a flip of his palm, it landed on the head of an elder. The elder was startled. He immediately wanted to retreat. However, he was imprisoned by the ghost martial artist's strength and was unable to move. Suddenly, a ray of white light was emitted from the elder's body. An image appeared in midair. In the image, a lush forest was constantly swaying. Above the forest, a long black tail appeared. So it was a blind magical beast that touched the barrier. The head institute elder heaved a sigh of relief. Luckily we have Master Gue Wu, otherwise we would have made a wasted trip over to check on the situation. A false alarm, a false alarm. Let's continue to guard the barrier. The few elders started to flatter him one after another. While Gue Wu kept silent as he stared at the image, at that swaying tail. Chapter 1455. Yiqing Luo, who had plunged into the vegetation, was still held down tightly by Kitty Lee. It was until half an incense's time had passed when Kitty Lee grabbed Yiqing Luo and speedily left the vicinity of the enchantment. Outside the boundary was the interior of the flame nest. Yiqing Luo could obviously feel that the surrounding heat was continuing to rise. Even now, she was wearing the ice pearl. That scorching heat made Yiqing Luo unable to adapt to it. The interior of the fire lair was indeed different from the periphery. Yiqing Luo wiped the perspiration off her forehead and looked sideways at Chi-Chi, whose fur was also damp from the heat. Which direction did you telephone to go? Chi-Chi opened her mouth and panted as she replied, Chi-Chi only gave me a rough location. In other words, it was a place near the flame lair. Chi-Chi did not know where a phone was in the blazing lair. Kitty Lee blinked her eyes and used her little head to rub against Yiqing Luo's shoulder. Sister, Kitty Lee can help you find him. Yiqing Luo looked at Kitty Lee. You've never seen him before, can you tell what he smells like? Although Kitty doesn't know the smell of the person Big Sister is looking for, Kitty can smell if there are other people around. Kitty Lee sniffed fiercely, her little nose twitching, a proud look on her face. Yiqing Luo pinched her little nose. My cat is the best. The smile on Kitty Lee's face blossomed like a flower. This place has a very strong smell of blood, but there are no other human scents nearby. Kitty Lee used her nose to accurately report the results of her smell. Yiqing Luo took a look at the dense forest which seemed to be enveloped by the heat. It seemed like he had to go deeper. Kitty, if you sense any danger, immediately avoid it after you remind me. I have a life-saving trump card, nothing will happen. Yiqing Luo lowered her head and instructed Kitty Lee. If she were alone. In this strange country, in a dangerous area. Even if she couldn't find a phone or discover the true secret of the flame nest. She could also guarantee that she could leave this place unscathed. Because she had the teleportation secret technique. However, if she brought Kitty Lee along, she wouldn't be able to leave so quickly. As long as Kitty Lee could rely on her beast-man nature to escape from danger, they would be fine. Kitty Lee's eyes widened as she looked at Yiqing Luo for some time, pursing her lips as she gave a low, "Oh." Yiqing Luo couldn't help but rubbed her head again. In her heart, Kitty Lee was like a little sister, and she couldn't help but want to love and cherish her. Perhaps it was precisely because Kitty Lee was a beast man, pure and clear, without the slightest bit of impurities that attracted her. Treat her sincerely. She would be able to treat him sincerely. Caressing Kitty Lee's little head, Yiqing Luo suddenly thought of the little lass Zilan who had been waiting for her to return home. Ever since Zilan's foot was cured, she had not seen Zilan again. I wonder how that girl Zilan is doing now. Suddenly, Yiqing Luo felt a sharp pain on her arm. She retracted her contemplative gaze and looked at her arm. Kitty Lee bit down on her arm with an angry look on her face. Yiqing Luo laughed involuntarily. "What's wrong?" Sister was thinking of someone else when she was stroking Kitty's head. Kitty Lee is not happy. Kitty Lee's eyes widened as she said angrily. Was this a fight for favor? Yiqing Luo laughed loudly as she rubbed her head fiercely. The beast-man race still had their beast-man nature. Chapter 1456. Along the way, based on the duo's agile movements, they didn't leave a single trace in the forest. After walking for about half an hour, Yiqing Luo roughly calculated the distance that she had walked. Chi cried out beside her ear, "Master, Master." Chi felt a strong beckoning. "It's just in front, just in front." Its wet fur rubbed against Yiqing Luo's body. Its two furry little claws kept scratching Yiqing Luo's clothes, as though it was urging Yiqing Luo to rush towards that direction. To make Chi develop such a strong feeling, this meant that they had already walked to the deepest part. If they went any further, there might be danger. Yiqing Luo comforted Chi as her eyes swept across the surroundings. "Sister, be careful." Suddenly, Kitty Lee's panicked cry was heard. Immediately, Kitty Lee hugged Yiqing Luo and pounced on her. The two of them rolled one round on the ground. Pong pong, a surge of profound energy that could cover the heavens and cover the earth directly pressed down. The place where Yiqing Luo was standing earlier suddenly revealed a huge deep pit. Yiqing Luo hugged Kitty Lee tightly as she retreated a few steps and looked over in alarm. She saw a jade-green figure slowly walked out. Fengling. Yiqing Luo frowned as a bad premonition arose in her heart. Fengling was actually here. Hadn't Dmo Xian forced her to return to the palace? Needless to say, she definitely came with ill intentions. Furthermore, there was a possibility Fengling was here for her. Who is she? Kitty Lee frowned as she stared unhappily at the direction of the jade-green figure. Why did she attack us? Yiqing Luo pulled Kitty Lee behind her as she frowned and looked coldly at Fengling. Miss Feng is indeed so bored that her balls hurt. You actually followed me to the blazing flame cave. Fengling's lips curled upwards as her beautiful face revealed a faint smile. Because I want to know, what charm does a lady who can make Brother D fall in love with her? Yiqing Luo laughed lightly as she brushed her long hair. It's very obvious, isn't it? Fengling's expression instantly darkened. Her beautiful eyes were dyed with a thin layer of frost. I can't tell which part of you is better than me. Even if I can't win you, the one Ah Xian likes is still me. Yiqing Luo continued with a smile. Bitch. A green wave of chi flew over. Windling's eyes shone with extreme anger. Killing intent immediately appeared, and an extremely powerful profound energy was released from his body. Her sleeves shot out, creating two green waves that surged with intense killing intent. Yiqing Luo pushed Kitty Lee away and said in a low voice, "You go away first." After that, he unfolded the feather fan in his hand and flipped his body to greet the jade-colored waves. The feather fan stirred up a whirlwind that collided with the jade wave. Yiqing Luo's peripheral vision saw Kitty Li disappearing into the forest at the side, and she was finally relieved. In the wide sleeves of Feng Ling's robe, there were 2 pieces of jade-green silk and 2 jade-green snakes, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws as they coiled around Yiqing Luo. Every time he rolled. Then, he released his powerful profound energy. Yiqing Luo displayed her footwork. The feather fan in her hands kept changing its movements. It completely blocked Feng Ling's attack. Feng Ling's expression suddenly darkened. Her gloomy cold gaze stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo as the jealousy in her heart grew thicker. "Bitch! I want to see how you are going to escape." Saying that, Feng Ling's flame was completely unleashed. Chapter 1457. The glower flame fan in Yiqing Luo's hand quickly flipped over her fingertips. Rustle rustle, the sound of the fan colliding with the satin made an extremely crisp sound. Every time they collided, Yiqing Luo could clearly feel an extremely strong numbness in her hand that was gripping the glower flame fan tightly. This Feng Ling not only had a way to break all kinds of enchantments. Her profound grade was not low either. Yiqing Luo's brows furrowed slightly as she quickly retreated a few steps, accurately avoiding Feng Ling's satin attack. If she continued to resist, she didn't know if her hand would be crippled. Taking a deep breath, Yiqing Luo nimbly took a few steps away from Feng Ling. "You do have some ability." Feng Ling's beautiful eyes were filled with killing intent, extremely strong. Yiqing Luo's face bloomed into a smile as she replied with a straight face, "That's natural, a Xian likes this bit of ability of mine." "You!" Feng Ling gritted her teeth and stared fiercely at the girl who snatched away her beloved man. Vixen. Snatched away her brother D. And dared to show off in front of her. This bitch, she must kill her. Feng Ling's exquisite and beautiful face was hideously distorted. In his eyes, a murderous intent that was as cold as ice appeared. Yiqing Luo retreated to the side, her charming eyes vigilantly staring at Feng Ling's increasingly hideous face. She pressed the direction of her heart. From the profound jade heart, a scorching heat was separated. Narrowing her eyes, she stared at Feng Ling's chest. Gradually, from Feng Ling's chest, an extremely faint light diffused. Flickering, not too obvious. But Yiqing Luo could still barely see it clearly. That was a green-grade profound jade heart. A 4th-grade profound jade heart. In the Nirvana realm, a cultivator who possessed a green-grade profound jade heart was already considered a high-level cultivator. Without a doubt, Feng Ling's profound grade was probably between the earth profound and sky profound. Yiqing Luo's expression became solemn. If it was a head-on confrontation, she might not be Feng Ling's opponent. Since Feng Ling dared to appear here, she must have made sufficient preparations. Humph. Now you know fear. Bitch. Even if you kneel down and beg me, I will definitely not let you go. The satin in Feng Ling's hands flew out in an ostentatious manner, creating 2 jade waves. Majestic and powerful profound energy poured down like a torrential river. The surrounding air seemed to be under the control of the blue waves at this moment. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as she leapt forward. The glowing flame fan in his hand didn't forget to shoot out 2 terrifying energy waves. The red devouring flame fan transformed into a bewitching red light. On Yiqing Luo's fingertips, it was like an excited elf. After that, the feathered fan was like a spinning top as it roared ceaselessly in midair, and it swept up a strong gale that collided with the jade wave. In the air, a billowing wave of air suddenly exploded. It was as if it could destroy heaven and earth. In an instant, the trees and the surroundings were smashed into smithereens. Feng Ling's attack did not stop because of this. His figure flashed as he attacked towards Yiqing Luo's face. Yiqing Luo was not to be outdone and retaliated. The battle between the two women was on the verge of breaking out. Feng Ling's every move was aimed at Yiqing Luo's vital points. Yiqing Luo's figure was nimble and her footwork was strange. In the shortest time possible, she could see through Feng Ling's moves and break them. After a round of battle, no one had gained the upper hand. Feng Ling's expression turned uglier and uglier. In the imperial palace, she relied on her grandmother to obtain countless miraculous pills and elixirs. Under her grandmother's guidance and the pills' consolidation. Chapter 1458. In Feng Ling's eyes. Yiqing Luo was an earth-profound fourth-grade cultivator, a young lass who only knew how to flaunt her prowess. But after exchanging so many blows, she couldn't even touch a corner of Yiqing Luo's clothes. How could Feng Ling endure this? To Feng Ling, this was a humiliation. A strong glint of anger shone in Feng Ling's eyes. The profound qi around her swelled up. The surrounding air waves formed a whirlpool. It seemed that if she got close, she would be killed by that whirlpool. The two pieces of satin in Feng Ling's sleeve started to attack fiercely. Like two poisonous snakes, they kept slithering and sticking out their scarlet tongues at Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo was good at observation. The surrounding terrain had been razed to the ground by Feng Ling. She could only rely on her own accurate calculation to break Feng Ling's attack. Starting from the exchange with Feng Ling, Yiqing Luo felt that Feng Ling's attack was strong, but it had a fatal weakness. And this weakness, Feng Ling herself was aware of it. She tried her best to hide her weakness. Feng Ling's attack was ferocious and the lethality was extremely strong. But once she launched an attack, she couldn't defend. In other words, when Feng Ling attacked Yiqing Luo, and when Yiqing Luo took the opportunity to fight face-to-face with Feng Ling couldn't defend herself and was easily attacked. Moreover, Yiqing Luo had completely grasped Feng Ling's attack pattern and rhythm accurately. Wind Chime's attack power and silk speed also went through a rough analysis in his mind. And after that, under Feng Ling's ferocious attack, Yiqing Luo was almost unscathed and easily evaded. So, in a fight, one had to rely on one's brain. Profound grade couldn't compete. Use your brain. This Feng Ling dared to covet her man. Deserved a beating. Yiqing Luo gave a cold snort as an extremely cold arc appeared between her brows. Miss Feng, no matter how high your profound grade is, no matter how good your starting point is, no matter how close you are to him, Xian is not a man that you can dream of. He only belongs to me. Her words had just ended and Yiqing Luo's figure turned into a strange shadow. In the blink of an eye, she disappeared in front of Feng Ling. Yiqing Luo's words made Feng Ling's eyes flash fiercely. Yiqing Luo, I think you're tired of living. Waves of jade-green qi erupted from Feng Ling's body. They gathered on the satin on her arms like they could topple mountains and overturn seas. Soon after, the surroundings seemed to be engulfed by the billowing blue sea. What's the point of being fast? I will block all your movements. Feng Ling sneered. No matter how fast Yiqing Luo was, she was still not afraid. The sound of the hurricane colliding with the blue waves could be heard in the air. It sounded like the mournful wails of evil spirits. I'll let you know how fast speed can be fatal. Her clear and sweet laughter was like pearls and jade falling onto a plate. Wind Ling's expression froze. Because this voice was very close. Right in front of her, behind him. Feng Ling's face was filled with shock. She quickly turned around and wanted to strike with her palm. But Yiqing Luo's speed was faster than her. The feather fan that flickered with a bewitching red light, in Feng Ling's eyes, released a dazzling light. A powerful force distorted the air. It went straight for her chest. Ah! A scream came out from Feng Ling's mouth. After that, his entire body shot out like an arrow that had left the bow. Fresh blood bloomed in the air. Chapter 1459. Feng Ling felt a tightness in her chest. A fishy sweetness surged up her throat. She spat out a mouthful of blood. Just as he was about to prop himself up, his chest suddenly felt heavy, and his body fell heavily to the ground once more. Yiqing Luo's feet stepped on her heaving chest. Bye. Bitch. Feng Ling groaned in pain. Her resentful eyes stared coldly at Yiqing Luo as she gritted her teeth. You dare. Ah! Yiqing Luo's feet suddenly exerted force. Feng Ling coughed up a mouthful of blood again. Yiqing Luo avoided her blood, and when she saw that Feng Ling had finished vomiting, she stepped on her chest. Her condescending appearance was like a bloodthirsty demon from hell. Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards as her long and narrow eyes outlined an enchanting arc. Miss Feng, don't think too highly of yourself. In my eyes, you're just an ant. She bent over and exerted more force under her feet. He watched as wind chime's face contorted continuously because of the pain. The chill in Yiqing Luo's eyes deepened. Towards this Feng Ling who dared to covet her man, Yiqing Luo didn't have any good impression at all. Especially since Feng Ling had tried every possible way to kill her. The last time at the back mountain of the West Lawn Square, the incident where the devil class was attacked, Feng Ling might also have something to do with it. Thinking of this, a murderous intent flashed past Yiqing Luo's eyes. Feng Ling felt Yiqing Luo's murderous intent and her face immediately revealed a horrified expression. Yiqing Luo, you can't kill me. I'm from the Imperial Palace, you. The Imperial Palace. These two words made Yiqing Luo's senses slightly sober up. The killing intent in his eyes also dissipated. Feng Ling was from the Imperial Palace. She was also the granddaughter of the Imperial Palace's granny. Feng Ling was able to make use of the Imperial Palace's old granny to make Dmo Xian tremble again and again. Although Dmo Xian scoffed at Feng Ling, but at least he did not chase her out of the Imperial Palace. Which meant that Dmo Xian was rather respectful towards that Imperial Palace's old granny. He killed wind chimes. This also meant that she had become enemies with the Imperial Palace's granny. This also meant that Xian would go against grandma because of her. The Imperial Palace would be in chaos because of this. At this critical juncture of dealing with the dark forces, the Imperial Palace must not have anything happen that would affect the Imperial Palace. She couldn't burden Xian. His grip on the glowing flame fan gradually loosened. He gradually moved his foot away from Wind Chime's chest. Just at this moment, Feng Ling suddenly stretched out her hands and hugged the leg that Yiqing Luo was about to move away, and cried out mournfully, "Grandma, save me! Grandma!" Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly tightened. An indescribable feeling of unease rose from the bottom of his heart. Suddenly, he felt a chill run down his spine. He felt an extremely powerful force coming at him from behind. Yiqing Luo's eyes widened as her face revealed a shocked expression, trying to evade it. However, Feng Ling was hugging her feet tightly. That power was majestic and powerful. It was as if it could destroy the heavens and the earth and destroy everything in the world. Yiqing Luo almost couldn't bear it as she suddenly laid down and pressed on top of Feng Ling. Then, he exerted a little force with his arm and changed his position with wind chimes. She down, wind chimes on. There seemed to be a little bit of ambiguous feeling. Feng Ling didn't expect that Yiqing Luo would use such a shameless method to avoid that powerful attack. When their positions changed, Feng Ling's hands couldn't hug Yiqing Luo's legs at all. Feng Ling's body was like a puppet being manipulated by Yiqing Luo, as it was placed horizontally in front of Yiqing Luo. Indeed. That overbearing and extremely oppressive airwave. Just as it neared the both of them, a burst of profound qi broke through that airwave and formed a transparent barrier in front of Yi Qing Luo and Feng Ling. Chapter 1460. Boom boom boom, energy and profound qi collided, giving off a deafening explosion. At the same time, Yi Qing Luo felt that Feng Ling, whom she used as a shield, was shifted away. Immediately following that, a huge palm pressed downwards. Luckily, Yi Qing Luo had already reacted the moment the wind chimes were shifted away. With a somersault, her footwork was displayed. Coincidentally, she avoided that huge palm. But Yi Qing Luo was still injured by the huge palm's airwave. The huge palm landed on the ground and the entire blazing flame layer shook. The airwave and the rising heat in the air kept intertwining. The overbearing energy was like a tide. After Yi Qing Luo avoided that huge palm, she immediately rubbed her bruised arm and swiftly retreated a few steps. She raised her eyes and looked through the sky full of gravel and sand. The sky was like a whirlpool of airwave. She could clearly see a figure covered in a black cloak suspended in mid-air not too far away. That figure was extremely short, and even its head was completely covered. Yi Qing Luo's first thought when she saw that figure was that this style was like a witch in a fairy tale. It was extremely strange, making one feel disgusted. In that figure's arms, was half-hugging a petite figure. Blood stained that jade-green robe. That was Feng Ling, noble and elegant, like a little dragon girl's exquisite looks and temperament, became extremely comical at this moment. Feng Ling groaned in pain and raised her eyes. When she saw the person who saved her, tears started to flow. Grandma, grandma, grandma. When Yi Qing Luo heard this form of address, her heart suddenly stopped. She raised her eyes and stared at that strange cloaked person as her heart felt suffocated. That was Feng Ling's grandma, the Imperial Palace's grandma whom Dmo Xian respected. Looking at that imposing Imperial Palace's grandma, Yi Qing Luo's throat turned dry. Recalling the continuous attacks earlier, Yi Qing Luo knew that this Imperial Palace's grandma was absolutely a sky mystic overlord or above. Even if she relied on her brain, it would be hard for her to exchange more than 3 moves with Imperial Palace's grandma. Imperial Palace's grandma came to the blazing flame lair, apparently for Feng Ling. And she had just tortured Feng Ling to the brink of death. How could Imperial Palace's grandma let her off? This was bad. Yi Qing Luo had not expected that the Imperial Palace's granny would actually take action personally. Grandma. Whoa. Little Ling is going to die. She's going to be beaten to death. When Feng Ling saw that she had her grandmother as her backing, she immediately felt confident. The Imperial Palace's grandma gently stroked Feng Ling's head, then raised her eyes and looked down at the young girl below. The moment their gazes met, Yi Qing Luo suddenly felt that her neck was being strangled by something cold. A suffocating feeling engulfed his entire body. Yi Qing Luo clenched her fists tightly, forcing herself not to reveal the slightest bit of stage fright. However, his heart was beating like a drum. This old woman from the Imperial Palace was indeed powerful to the extent that she was no match for her. If she fought with the Imperial Palace's old granny, she would definitely be at a disadvantage. No matter what, he had to think of a way to escape first. Taking a deep breath, Yi Qing Luo's gaze roamed around, trying to search for the direction of Kitty Li. The battle with Winqin just now was earth-shattering. The forest that could hide in the area was turned upside down by wind chimes. He didn't know where Kitty Li was hiding. Chapter 1461. Yi Qing Luo's face instantly turned pale. She raised her eyes abruptly and looked towards the direction of Imperial Palace's granny. She saw Imperial Palace's granny waving her black cloak, and a slender figure was grabbed by the neck by Imperial Palace's granny's arm, hanging in midair. That green and white uniform was already stained with blood. Black tail drooped down weakly. Yiqing Luo's pupils suddenly contracted. Kitty. When did Imperial Palace's granny? When did she catch Kitty Li? Yiqing Luo's entire body was trembling slightly as an eerie chill arose in her eyes. What do you want? Imperial Palace's granny's sinister laughter was ear-piercing. She took a look at Kitty Li in her hands and then looked at Fengling in her arms. The gaze under the cloak was extremely icy cold. You beat my granddaughter into such a state and you still ask me what I want. Imperial Palace's granny's body slowly landed on the ground. She casually threw Kitty Li behind her. Yiqing Luo followed closely, trying to catch Kitty Li. But she saw Kitty Li's body, in midair, seemed to have collided into something as it suddenly froze in midair. Following that, she heard Kitty Li's miserable shriek. Yiqing Luo couldn't see it with her naked eye. But she could tell from Kitty Li's struggling look. Imperial Palace's granny used profound qi to create an array to trap Kitty Li. Now Kitty Li was trapped in that array and her four limbs were all entangled by an invisible profound qi, totally unable to move. Yiqing Luo stopped in her tracks. Her vigilant eyes stared fiercely at Imperial Palace's granny. Unable to decode that array, there was a possibility that even she would be sucked into that array forcefully. Little girl, you're so young, yet you're so arrogant. Have you ever heard of the saying that there's always someone better out there? The Imperial Palace's granny narrowed her cold eyes and gently placed Fengling on the ground. She enunciated each word slowly and unhurriedly. Imperceptibly, she emitted a strong imposing aura, not angry at all. Imperial Palace's granny fed Fengling a medicinal pill and immediately looked towards Yiqing Luo. Under the cloak, Yiqing Luo could only see that pair of venomous eyes. You snatched away my grandson-in-law and injured my obedient granddaughter. Little girl, tell me, how should I punish you? Imperial Palace's granny spoke in contempt, totally disregarding Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips tightly as she stared vigilantly at the Imperial Palace's old granny. Looking at Fengling's smug gaze, her heart became heavier. Kitty Li was caught. It was impossible for her to abandon Kitty Li and use teleportation to escape. Grandma! Kill her for me. Kill this vixen who stole Brother D away. Big Brother D clearly only has me in his heart. It's her, it's this vixen that bewitched Big Brother D's mind. Fengling held onto her chest as she leaned against a huge rock in a sorry state, gritting her teeth as she stared at Yiqing Luo. The hatred in her voice and the pained frown on her face as she spoke made the chill in the depths of the Imperial Palace's grandma's eyes even more intense. Imperial Palace's grandma gently caressed Fengling's head as her voice became warmer. Little Ling, Grandma will uphold justice for you. Yiqing Luo sneered. Young Miss Feng really knows how to dream. If Ah Xian really likes you, he would have been together with you long ago. Would there still be a need for me to appear? Even a 5-year-old child wouldn't do something like you. Do you think Ah Xian would like a woman like you? Fengling was so angry that she started to pant heavily. Suddenly her chest felt stuffy and with a thwa, she spat out a mouthful of blood. Chapter 1462. Imperial Palace's granny was completely infuriated. She didn't put Yiqing Luo in her eyes at all. But this little slut dared to humiliate her granddaughter in front of her. Imperial Palace's granny's eyes sunk as she comforted Fengling softly and immediately stood up. What a sharp-tongued slut, Granny wants to see to what extent can you be unyielding. Just as she finished her words, Imperial Palace's granny leaped. The wide black cloak was like a bat spreading its wings. The powerful profound qi set off thousands of huge waves as it brutally crashed towards Yiqing Luo's face. Yiqing Luo suppressed the shock in her heart as her fingers clasped the feather fan tightly as her figure swiftly moved backwards. She knew that Imperial Palace's granny's profound grade wasn't low. But she didn't expect that the power released by Imperial Palace's granny was even more terrifying than before. And it was obvious that Imperial Palace's granny had not used her full strength. This old woman, profound grade was definitely. It was already higher than what she knew. Yiqing Luo's cold eyes narrowed slightly as she released her perception to the maximum, vigilantly paying attention to Imperial Palace's granny's attack. Lass Luo, how did you provoke such a powerful opponent? Old man Song's voice suddenly rang in her mind. Yiqing Luo avoided Imperial Palace's granny's attack as she meditated. Old man Song, don't ask the reason first, can thunderclap arts hit her? I advise you, don't use thunderclap arts in front of this old woman. Old man Song stopped her. If she recognizes that you have the thunderclap arts manual, she will definitely know the whereabouts of the Azure Dew bracelet. Your current ability is not enough to protect the Azure Dew bracelet, it's best to keep a low profile. Just as he was speaking, Yiqing Luo's speed slowed down for a moment. The huge rock which was lifted up by the strong wind smashed hard on Yiqing Luo's back. Yiqing Luo groaned and immediately increased her speed to avoid Imperial Palace's granny's relentless attack. Lass, hurry and run now. Go back to Ghost Marshal first, if he's there, that old woman won't dare to hurt you. Old man Song said anxiously. No. Kitty is still in her hands. Yiqing Luo took a look at Kitty Li, who was suspended in mid-air, and her eyes were filled with frost. You'd better think of a reliable way to deal with me. From Old Man Song's tone, it was obvious that he was no stranger to the Imperial Palace's granny. Old Man Song was, it was a 1,000-year-old spirit body, and yet, there was someone whom he could recognize. He might have lived for thousands of years. It was no wonder that she had nowhere to hide in front of the Imperial Palace's granny. The reason why he was able to avoid Granny's attack was because the granny of the Imperial Palace was playing a cat and mouse game. Yiqing Luo didn't want to admit that she had always played the role of a cat, but today she had become a mouse. However, she was still glad that the Imperial Palace's grandma was in the mood to kill her with one palm strike. Strength, that was the way to survive. In the end, she was still too weak. Yiqing Luo clenched her fists tightly. She must work hard to become stronger. He was strong enough to protect the people around him. She gritted her teeth and whispered in her heart, Kitty, wait for me. He couldn't go head-on against the Imperial Palace's granny. She must take the opportunity to rescue Kitty Li. Old Man Song didn't reply for a long time. Perhaps he was thinking about how to deal with this crisis. Yiqing Luo didn't have time to wait for Old Man Song's reply. Chapter 1463. Oh no! Yiqing Luo cried out in her heart. Her fingertips fumbled around the profound phoenix ring and took out a ring. She wore the ring on her finger and activated her profound chi to cover her entire body. Bam bam bam, like 10,000 horses galloping, or like the sound of the raging waves, it shook the earth and the mountains. Everything in the surroundings seemed to be wrapped up by this powerful chi. The ground kept shaking. Profound chi bombarded the surroundings. The surrounding ground, trees, bushes, broken branches, were all uprooted from the ground. This piece of land had been leveled to flat ground. Ha! Little vixen. Imperial Palace's granny hugged Feng Ling tightly in her arms, and when she looked at Feng Ling, the warmth in her eyes became gentler. Little Ling, Granny has already avenged you. After you have recovered, Granny will let Imo Xian, that fellow, marry you. Feng Ling looked behind Granny, at Yiqing Luo, who was shrouded in that whirlpool, who had probably been smashed into pieces, and her face revealed a complacent smile, and thank you, Granny. But, the next moment, she lowered her head in grievance. But Granny, will Brother D blame me? What if he doesn't want to marry me? Imperial Palace's granny rubbed Feng Ling's head intimately. Don't worry, Mo Xian, that fellow values filial piety the most. As long as Granny says it, he will not dare to defy Granny's orders. Feng Ling then smiled like a flower. But her smile did not last for long. Because her gaze was staring at the back of Imperial Palace's granny in astonishment and shock. Her pupils gradually widened. Feng Ling wanted to call Granny, but her throat seemed to be choked by something, unable to make any sound. Imperial Palace's granny sensed something, and immediately turned her head to look behind. A sliver of astonishment instantly surfaced in her malicious eyes. Only to see that the profound qi whirlpool was gradually dispersed by a bewitching red glow. Gravel flew, air billowed. That bewitching red glow turned into a ball shape and slowly spread out. A slender figure stood in midair. Behind her stood a huge white tiger sacred beast, and on the sacred beast's back laid Kitty Lee, who was originally restrained by Imperial Palace's granny with an array. What was going on? A cold glint flashed across Granny's sinister eyes. Her palm strike just now was nearly capable of destroying heaven and earth. Everything around them had been razed to the ground. She actually didn't kill Yi Qing Luo and even let her save that little wildcat. The Imperial Palace's granny's face darkened. Yi Qing Luo stood in the middle of the bewitching red light ball as her green and white uniform fluttered in the wind. 3,000 strands of black hair flew in the wind. At this moment, her beautiful face was even more dazzling. It was as if everything in the world, except for her, had lost its luster. Slowly, the light dissipated. The light merged into Yi Qing Luo's fingertip, onto that ordinary-looking ring. Yi Qing Luo looked down at the Imperial Palace's old granny and Feng Ling. The cold intent in her eyes was like a sharp blade. Her aura was fully unleashed as she stared unblinkingly at the Imperial Palace's old granny, saying word by word, "Dmo Xian will only belong to me, Yi Qing Luo, for all eternity. No matter who it is, no one can erase this fact." The azure dew ring's energy blended with Yi Qing Luo's profound grade. Yi Qing Luo could clearly feel that the profound jade heart in her chest was giving off a resonating feeling. Imperial Palace's old granny's expression was gloomy, only feeling a burning sensation on her face. This little slut, was she publicly slapping her face? Granny. Feng Ling looked at Yi Qing Luo in this state, as an inexplicable feeling of fear arose in her heart. Chapter 1464. Yi Qing Luo glanced sideways and saw the pale-faced Kitty Lee who was lying on Chi Chi's body, blinking her eyes as she said softly, "Kitty, take a rest, sister will bring you back immediately." Kitty Lee opened her mouth and breathed out silently from her pale lips. Apparently, her injury was extremely serious. Yi Qing Luo's pupils contracted as she gently stroked Kitty Lee's soft hair. "Don't worry, close your eyes and sleep." Following that, she patted Chi Chi's head. Chi Chi brought Kitty Lee and speedily left Yi Qing Luo's back. With Chi Chi protecting Kitty Lee, Yi Qing Luo didn't need to worry for the time being. Yi Qing Luo raised her eyes and looked at the Imperial Palace's old granny whose eyes were filled with murderous intent. She clenched the glower flame fan in her hands tightly. "Lass Luo, you're crazy." Old Man Tsung's anxious voice rang in her mind. "Do you know what you're doing now? Didn't I tell you before that you can only maintain your Earth Profound 4th grade ability and not use the power of the God Relic? The last time when Yi Qing Luo lost control, if it wasn't for Dmo Xian's presence, she really didn't know who could stop her. Once Yi Qing Luo used the power of the God Relic, causing her to lose control again, the consequences were unimaginable." Yi Qing Luo pursed her pink lips as her expression congealed. "I can't think of any other way." Earlier, it wasn't that she couldn't escape from the Imperial Palace's old granny's attack. But if she were to escape, Kitty Lee, who was trapped in the array, would also be strangled to death by that burst of energy. At the critical moment, Yiqing Luo could only think of using the Azure Dew Ring's power to release the barrier which belonged to the god relic. The Imperial Palace's old granny had treated herself too well. After that attack, all her thoughts were placed on Fengling. Yiqing Luo also took this opportunity to let Qi transform into her battle form and immediately displayed her teleportation, using the Azure Dew Ring's power to forcefully break the Imperial Palace's old granny's array and save Kitty Lee. She knew that after using the Azure Dew Ring's power, that inexplicable profound Qi might possibly cause her to lose control again. But she had no other way. No matter what, she couldn't just watch Kitty Lee get into trouble. She took a deep breath and looked up at the Imperial Palace's grandma. She clenched her fists and said, "Old man Tsang, if I really lose control and hurt the people I care about, then use your power to stop me." Girl Luo. Old man Tsang stomped his feet anxiously in the Azure Dew bracelet. He couldn't be anxious in his heart, and was annoyed at himself for not being able to break through the last stage of cultivation. He just needed to break through the last stage of cultivation. He would be able to use his spiritual body to appear by Yiqing Luo's side to help her. Yiqing Luo ignored old man Tsang's dissuasion. She could not avoid this battle at all. Granny from the Imperial Palace would not give her a chance to escape. Little Vixen. An icy glint flashed across the Imperial Palace's granny's eyes. At this moment, Imperial Palace's granny was filled with murderous intent towards Yiqing Luo. This little vixen had seduced her most promising DMO Xian. She even hurt her most precious granddaughter. Furthermore, this little vixen didn't look simple at all. If they didn't get rid of it, they would definitely cause chaos in the Imperial Palace in the future. She must kill her. She didn't believe that Mo Xian, that fellow, would blame her for a shameless little vixen. With this thought in mind, Imperial Palace's granny's eerie eyes were filled with a biting cold murderous intent. Immediately following that, Imperial Palace's granny's figure flashed and like a huge bat, she leapt into the sky. But a moment later, she had already arrived in front of Yiqing Luo. The extreme cold murderous intent made Yiqing Luo's back turn cold. Chapter 1465. Yiqing Luo was on high alert as she immediately opened her glower flame fan and rolled up a hurricane to block in front of her. Following that, her body sunk downwards and using her footwork, she speedily got out of the attack range of the Imperial Palace's granny. The hurricane shone with a demonic red glow. The surrounding air was also intertwined under the hurricane's rotation. It directly brought up an earth-shattering, billowing airwave. Boom! The hurricane and the Imperial Palace's granny's attack collided. The surrounding airwave was surging. Even though Yiqing Luo got out of the attack range, her arm was still cut by the airwave. Fresh blood instantly gushed out. Yiqing Luo's figure retreated more than 10 meters away. "Sister." Kitty Lee laid on Chi-Chi's back as she called out to Yiqing Luo weakly. Yiqing Luo stabilized herself as her eyes stared coldly at the Imperial Palace's granny, who was laughing sinisterly with a solemn look on her face. She didn't have any extra time to check on her injury. The Imperial Palace's granny's next attack was directed towards Yiqing Luo. He did not show any mercy at all. The Imperial Palace's granny's attack was swift and violent, bringing up airwaves which seemed to be able to destroy the heavens and earth. Everywhere they passed, the ground split apart and revealed a long chasm. Yiqing Luo clenched her teeth as she merged the divine relic with her own energy and used all her skills to avoid the Imperial Palace's granny's attack. And her mind kept analyzing the Imperial Palace's granny's attack to counter it. Only, the difference in profound grade was not just to use the divine relic to turn defeat into victory. Yiqing Luo's evasion and finding a chance to counterattack the Imperial Palace's granny. In the Imperial Palace's granny's eyes, it was simply a struggle before death. A small earth-profound cultivator, even if she could control the divine relic's power. So what? The owner of the divine relic was a waste. How could she hope for the divine relic to turn the waste into a genius? But after a few moves, Yiqing Luo's body was already covered with wounds. Her green and white uniform had long been dyed red. Even her petite figure was on the verge of collapsing. Fresh blood slowly dripped down along her body. Yiqing Luo wiped the blood off her lips as she looked coldly at the imperial palace's granny without any intention of giving in. Under the billowing airwaves, if one looked closely. Indistinctly, in Yiqing Luo's pair of enchanting eyes, a devilish red glow was faintly appearing. Imperial Palace's granny swept a contemptuous glance at Yiqing Luo and turned her head to look at Feng Ling. "Xiao Ling, are you satisfied?" Yiqing Luo, who was drenched in blood, looked as if her injuries were no lighter than Feng Ling's. Windling was overjoyed. However, when Feng Ling saw the face that was still beautiful even though it was stained with blood, a hint of jealousy flashed in her eyes. "Granny! Destroy that face of hers. Let's see what she uses to seduce the other ghosts in the underworld." "All right. Granny will destroy her face now." Granny of the Imperial Palace agreed to Feng Ling's request lovingly. Following that, he turned around and looked at Yiqing Luo, who was on the verge of collapsing, as though he was an evil spirit seeking for her life. His eyes were filled with sinister viciousness. His cloak and black robe fluttered. A withered, twig-like hand reached out from the cloak. The terrifying fingers flashed, revealing a sharp fingernail on the 5 fingers. It was like a sharp blade, shining with a cold light. Swoosh! A piercing sound was heard as Imperial Palace's granny's figure approached Yiqing Luo's direction. And it brought along a surge of overbearing profound qi, sweeping over. Yiqing Luo's footwork was immediately displayed. But no matter how she avoided, Imperial Palace's granny's figure was able to follow her like a shadow. Chapter 1466 F***K. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but cursed. That was way too brutal, wasn't it? She actually wanted to ruin her face. She couldn't avoid it, so she could only retaliate. Yiqing Luo clenched her teeth tightly, enduring the pain in her arm as she clenched the glower flame fan tightly. A scorching feeling arose from the azure dew ring. Yiqing Luo shut her eyes as she activated her profound jade heart's profound qi, merging it with the power of the god relic. She faced the Imperial Palace's granny as the glower flame fan in her hand spun rapidly on her fingertips. Suddenly, an explosive red light burst out from between his palms. She used one hand to split the Imperial Palace's granny's outstretched hand. The other hand spun the glower flame fan even faster, directly entering the Imperial Palace's granny's chest. Bam bam bam. A deafening sound reverberated as the two forces collided. A terrifying and overbearing aura spread wildly in all directions. The ground was filled with sand and dust. The violent energy once again stirred up everything in the surroundings. The heat wave from the flame nest was like a surging sea of fire, howling madly. Crack! The sound of bones breaking was extremely clear at this moment. Bam! Another loud sound was heard. The Imperial Palace's granny retreated a few steps as both her feet were stuck into the ground, stabilizing her body. Her withered, wood-like hand pressed against her heart. Her cold eyes were filled with evil as she looked down at her own chest. Blood seeped out from the gaps of her withered wood fingers. Damn it! That little slut, how dare! The Imperial Palace's granny's venomous and cold voice made one shudder. Whereas on the other side, Yiqing Luo gave a muffled moan as she spat out a mouthful of blood, her body flew out stiffly. Sister! Kitty Lee's hoarse voice cried out Yiqing Luo's name in terror. At the same time, a furry body caught her firmly. It was Chi Chi's smell. Yiqing Luo laid on Chi-Chi's body as she heard Kitty Lee's cries. Her breathing was heavy as her consciousness started to drift off. Intense pain spread throughout her internal organs. Especially the pain in her arm, which made it even more unbearable. The moment she blocked the Imperial Palace's granny, the Imperial Palace's granny forcibly broke the bones in her left arm. Big sister. Big sister. Kitty Lee's sobbing voice resounded in her ears. Faintly, Yiqing Luo seemed to have heard a familiar voice ringing beside her ears. It seemed to be very close. Qing Luo. Yiqing Luo. Madam Qing Luo. Different voices called out to her one after another. Vaguely, he could hear Kitty Lee sobbing and saying something. However, the voice was extremely faint, and she could not hear it clearly. The only thing he could be sure of was, someone was calling her. Long Yun Zhan. Yen Xiao Yi. Tong Ziqing. Or was it everyone in Devil class? Those voices were so familiar, but Yiqing Luo didn't have the energy to respond. No, she could not fall. Kitty Lee and Chi-Chi were still by her side. If she fell, the Imperial Palace granny would not let them go. She could not fall. Her brothers were still waiting for her to return. Also, if Dmo Xian knew that she had hurt him so badly, he would definitely feel heartache. He could not admit defeat just like that. She had to stand up. In the bottom of her heart, a conviction kept on surging. Yiqing Luo could feel that her own blood was constantly oozing out. An indescribable feeling, near her heart, in the position of that profound jade heart, kept on surging. Her slender fingers trembled slightly. Following that. Chapter 1467. Beastman Clan, Cat Beast Clan Cat King's daughter, Li Mao, swear on the Cat Beast Clan's cat blood to set up a life and death contract with Master Yiqing Luo. I will follow Master Yiqing Luo for eternity. Li Mao's voice rang clearly in her ears. Yiqing Luo frowned. What did this mean? What life and death contract? Before Yiqing Luo had time to think carefully, her lower jaw was lifted and her mouth seemed to be stuffed with some liquid. A fishy sweet taste filled her mouth. Following that, she felt a warm force pressing on her forehead. The next moment, Yiqing Luo felt a white light flashing in her head. Her entire body was covered by a scorching feeling. She could even feel the tiny blood vessels in her body, as well as the flow of blood. A mysterious force pervaded her limbs and bones. That seemed like profound qi, but also seemed like heaven and earth's spiritual qi. It kept roaming around in her body. But a moment later, the pain in Yiqing Luo's body disappeared. Even the blood which was gushing out from her wounds stopped flowing. Jiri Granny. Wing Chime stared in disbelief at the young woman who lay on the white tiger's sacred beast's back and shone with a bewitching red light. She stuttered and called out to the granny of the Imperial Palace. She's, that little wild cat, is actually the Beastman clan's cat princess. Imperial Palace's granny's cold gaze stared coldly at the two of them who were in the midst of the contract, as a chilly glint appeared in her eyes. What Beastman clan? Granny, is she going to advance again? Feng Ling didn't understand the meaning of Imperial Palace's granny's words. She only knew that she sensed an extremely strong energy from Yiqing Luo. Originally, Yiqing Luo's profound grade, to her, was not able to pose any threat to her. But now, the surge of energy from Yiqing Luo's body made Feng Ling fearful. Imperial Palace's granny squinted her sinister cold eyes, as she felt blood oozing out from her palms, which made her eyes turn even colder. This little slut was really not a simple character. This was the first time she was injured by such a young lass. Even the cat princess, in order to save this little slut, was willing to sign a life and death contract with her. If he didn't get rid of it, there would be future troubles. A murderous aura shot out from the Imperial Palace's granny's eyes. She clenched her fists and was about to rush towards the young girl who was still accepting the contract. Then, she heard wind chimes cry out in surprise, "Grandma, look, what is that?" Granny of the Imperial Palace looked in the direction Feng Ling was pointing. He saw Yi Qing Luo's body, unknowingly enveloped by a layer of extremely gloomy black qi. That black qi was obviously evil qi. Wisps of evil qi kept twining around Yi Qing Luo's body, as though it was trying to probe into her body. However, before he could even get close, Yi Qing Luo's surrounding rays of red light blocked that black qi, directly separating it. Granny of the Imperial Palace frowned and looked at the black gas with deep meaning in her eyes. After a while, the black gas was completely devoured by the red light. At the same time, the airwaves surrounding Yi Qing Luo started to churn rapidly. Bang! An extremely ferocious profound energy instantly dispersed all the whirlpools and hurricanes in the surroundings. Yi Qing Luo opened her eyes. A pair of enchanting eyes shot out a piercingly cold glint, turning into a sharp blade as it flew towards the direction of Imperial Palace's granny. Imperial Palace's granny's pupils constricted as she scooped up Feng Ling and swiftly evaded. Chapter 1468. Yi Qing Luo floated in the air, a burst of fierce profound qi lingered around her body. Her green and white uniform had been dyed red. Like a blooming bloodthirsty poppy, enchanting and captivating. Promoted to Earth Profound 5th grade. Promoted to Earth Profound 6th grade. Promoted, Yi Qing Luo's surrounding aura rose rapidly. That grandparent and granddaughter duo were stunned. When a cultivator was promoting, they would form a self-protection barrier. No one could break through the barrier and attack the cultivator who was promoting. Even the Imperial Palace's granny was unable to attack Yi Qing Luo at this time. Imperial Palace's granny's eyes were filled with evil coldness, even she couldn't believe her own eyes. After living for so long, she had never seen a person who could promote so quickly. Who exactly was this little bitch? Why did she have such terrifying power? Yi Qing Luo could clearly feel that her body was filled with extremely strong profound qi. One grade after another, surging violently in her body. Finally, a burst of strong profound qi rushed straight to the profound jade heart. The blood in her body seemed to be boiling. The profound qi gradually stopped. Promotion stopped, Earth Profound 9th grade. And it was the peak of Earth Profound 9th grade. She was just short of an opportunity to promote directly to Sky Profound Realm. She was absolutely a pervert. Imperial Palace's granny could no longer conceal her shock. One must know how difficult it was to promote a grade in the Earth Profound Realm. Even Feng Ling. She had been using high-grade medicinal pills and various medicinal herbs since young, and now Feng Ling was only in the Earth Profound 7th grade. If Feng Ling wanted to promote a grade, she would need to use at least 100,000 gold coins worth of medicinal pills to barely guarantee that Feng Ling would be promoted within a year. But, Yi Qing Luo actually promoted 5 grades in a row at this moment. Imperial Palace's granny was extremely vexed at this moment. Why didn't she kill Yi Qing Luo directly? Yi Qing Luo clenched her fists, feeling the profound qi in her body merging with her body, converging. The strong aura in her body made her feel extremely comfortable. Lass Luo, you've really picked up a treasure. Old man Tsang's tense voice came from her mind. He seemed to have been nervous for a long time. At this time, his voice was a little hoarse. This old man forgot that you have a beast-man kitten by your side. Yi Qing Luo turned her head and looked at the unconscious Kitty Li who was lying on top of Chi Chi. What's going on? She couldn't quite remember what had happened just now. Old Man Song let out a long sigh of relief. Li Mao is the princess of the cat-beast clan. She has the purest blood of the cat-beast clan. She signed a life and death contract with you, and you received the bloodline inheritance of the cat-beast clan. Regarding the bloodline inheritance, Yi Qing Luo had heard Old Man Song mention it before. Kitty actually signed a life and death contract with him. Once this contract was signed, they would be inseparable for all eternity. Furthermore, Kitty Lee was the princess of the cat-beast clan. This also meant that she would definitely go back and inherit the cat-beast clan in the future. Was it really okay to form a contract with her like this? I really don't know why you're so lucky. Old Man Song had a helpless tone as he lightly sighed. You were actually able to trigger the fusion of the divine tool and the profound jade heart before you fainted. In addition, Kitty Lee took the initiative to swear a blood oath, which allowed you to seize the opportunity to advance. This kind of advancement method. It required the right conditions and people. Coincidentally, Yi Qing Luo had all of them. There was no one else with this kind of luck. Chapter 1469. She was able to advance. It was her brothers who awakened her willpower. It was them who gave her the courage to never admit defeat. So she was able to use her willpower to activate the god relic. Looking at the pale-faced Kitty Lee, Yi Qing Luo's gaze gradually turned gentle. She moved her lips lightly and said silently, Kitty, thank you. Little slut. Granny wants to see how powerful you are after inheriting the bloodline inheritance. Imperial Palace's Granny didn't give Yi Qing Luo any chance to merge her powers. If this little slut wasn't eliminated soon, she would be a huge threat to her. This kind of pervert was too scary. She wanted to nip Yi Qing Luo in the bud. Imperial Palace's Granny's hoarse and sharp voice was extremely ear-piercing. The next moment, she had already rolled up a terrifying profound chi and attacked towards Yi Qing Luo's face. However, her attack had actually landed on thin air. Following Yi Qing Luo's breath, Imperial Palace's Granny turned her head. She saw Yi Qing Luo looking at her with a smile which didn't look like a smile. That pair of long and narrow eyes were filled with ridicule and coldness. Imperial Palace's Granny's expression suddenly turned cold as her gloomy eyes revealed a strong murderous intent. This little slut dared to belittle her. She had merely advanced to Earth Profound 9th grade. Did she really treat herself as an expert? Imperial Palace's Granny was furious as her figure flashed and immediately attacked towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. This time, Imperial Palace's Granny was watching Yi Qing Luo's actions closely. But she saw. That blood-red robe was like a jumping flame as it flashed past her eyes. Strong profound chi revolved around her body, as though it was driving the heaven and earth's spiritual chi. Every move was so nimble that no one could catch up to it. This was like a cat. That's right. It was a cat. After inheriting the bloodline inheritance of the cat race, Yi Qing Luo herself would also obtain the power of the cat race. Of course, this didn't mean that Yi Qing Luo could be like Kitty Lee, using her hands as cat claws. But she had the characteristics of a cat. For example, the body's nimbleness and flexibility. For example, the sense of the surrounding environment and the acute sense of smell, etc. As long as it was a cat's characteristic, it had already integrated into Yi Qing Luo's body. Yi Qing Luo's speed was originally extremely fast. Coupled with that set of footwork, it was even harder to fathom. Now that she had inherited the cat beast's bloodline, her speed was almost comparable to lightning. Even the Imperial Palace's old granny couldn't follow her like she used to. The Imperial Palace's granny's eyes were sinister as she suddenly yelled, "Little bitch, if you dare to dodge again, I'll strangle this brat to death right now." Yi Qing Luo was stunned as her brows creased. The Imperial Palace's granny extended her withered, wood-like fingers to her side. Suddenly, an extremely strong suction force filled the entire space. In the next instant, a figure sprang up from the rubble and trees. It landed steadily on the arm of the Imperial Palace. The young man was dressed in black, and his body was covered in scratches from the rubble and trees. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted abruptly. Wind. It was Ah Feng. Why was he here? And he was captured by the Imperial Palace's granny. Yi. Miss Yi. Ah Feng spat out the 3 words with difficulty. His throat was forcefully pinched by the Imperial Palace's granny. His face turned pale and he couldn't make any sound. Chapter 1470. Imperial Palace's granny saw Yiqing Luo's expression and her malicious eyes revealed a delighted smile. This kid is obviously a lackey of the Imperial Palace, but he dares to side with an outsider like you. The Imperial Palace's granny sneered contemptuously. Granny, even if I kill him, it's to rid the Imperial Palace of a disloyal lackey. Looking at the Imperial Palace's granny's tightening fingers, Yiqing Luo clenched her teeth tightly. He's listening to Ah Xian's instructions and listening to my orders. What kind of disloyalty is that? Are you showing off in front of Grandma? That brat Mo Xian treats you so well that he even sent the Imperial Palace's lackeys to you. Grandma narrowed her eyes. Yiqing Luo clenched her fists tightly and remained silent. The Imperial Palace's grandma looked at the dying Ah Feng with disdain and snorted. You're quite loyal. It's not impossible for you to save this brat. Yiqing Luo's brows creased as she looked at her vigilantly. The Imperial Palace's granny sneered and turned to look at Feng Ling. Little Ling, come here. Wind Chimes, who had taken the medicinal pill from the granny in the Imperial Palace and recovered most of her body, got up from the ground and jogged to the granny in the Imperial Palace. Imperial Palace's old granny pushed Feng Ling towards Yiqing Luo. If you don't dodge or evade, don't defend or defend, and receive 3 strikes from Xiao Ling, I will make the decision to give this fellow to you. Delight shone in Windling's eyes. Imperial Palace granny. Ah Feng said with difficulty, you killed subordinate, shut up. She clenched her hand and stopped Ah Feng. You don't have the right to speak here. Sure. Yiqing Luo looked coldly at the Imperial Palace's granny's hand. I can agree to your request, but you must use your reputation as the Imperial Palace's granny to guarantee that you will spare Wind's life. The Imperial Palace's granny snorted coldly. Do you have the right to negotiate with me? Then let's have a life and death struggle. Yiqing Luo's tone was cold and her eyes were filled with killing intent. Granny's face darkened. This little slut has quite a backbone. She snorted coldly. Fine, I'll agree to your request. Then, she loosened her grip on Ah Feng's neck. Ah Feng opened his mouth, wanting to dissuade Yiqing Luo, but after a long period of suffocation, he had no energy to speak. Little Ling, go. Granny of the Imperial Palace said faintly. Feng Ling's eyes were filled with joy and excitement as she jealously stared at Yiqing Luo's devastatingly beautiful face, gritting her teeth as she laughed. Yiqing Luo, you have such a day too. Just as she finished her words, Feng Ling's sleeves fluttered and 2 pieces of jade green satin went straight towards Yiqing Luo's chest. Bang! There was a loud noise. Yiqing Luo's body was struck by that satin and flew backwards. There was a sharp pain in her chest. Yiqing Luo stabilized her body, raised her eyes and said calmly, the first move. Wind Chimes scowled and her gaze was fierce. Her ethereal face had long since become twisted and savage. All right. Look at the second move. Before she could make a move, Granny of the Imperial Palace stopped Feng Ling. She stared at Yiqing Luo with interest. She had not expected Yi Qing Luo to comply with the request and forcefully take on Feng Ling's attack. She took another look at Ah Feng, who was struggling to get up. "Little slut, are you sure you want to sacrifice yourself to save his dog life?" Granny of the Imperial Palace felt that it was ridiculous. He was just a secret guard. Was it worth Yi Qing Luo to use her life to exchange for him? Or was it that Yi Qing Luo had the confidence that she could survive within 3 moves from Feng Ling? Ha! Even if Yi Qing Luo could survive, she would not let Yi Qing Luo leave this place alive. But... Chapter 1471. Little slut, if it wasn't for him, my precious granddaughter wouldn't be able to come here to block you. Your whereabouts are all betrayed by him. Imperial Palace's granny squinted her malicious eyes as she sneered sinisterly. Yi Qing Luo frowned as her gaze swept past Wind, who had fallen beside Imperial Palace's granny's feet. Wind moved his lips but was unable to make a sound. Seeing Yi Qing Luo's silence, Imperial Palace's granny's eyes overflowed with ridicule. Before she opened her mouth, she heard Yi Qing Luo's cold voice. "Imperial Palace's granny, don't you feel that your method of sowing discord is too childish?" Imperial Palace's granny's complacent smile froze on her lips as her eyes sunk. "As the person in charge of the Imperial Palace, I am very clear about the whereabouts of the Imperial Palace's secret guards. Mo Xian placed this lab by your side, which means that no matter where you go, as the person in charge of the Imperial Palace, he will know your whereabouts clearly." Yi Qing Luo's eyes flashed as something seemed to have pierced her heart fiercely. Yi Qing Luo didn't doubt the authenticity of Imperial Palace's granny's words. Mo Xian was indeed able to accurately pinpoint the exact location she was at. Previously she thought it was because of the Profound Phoenix Ring and Profound Dragon Ring. Now it seemed that it was because Wind had been following her in the dark. Imperial Palace's granny was trying to provoke her trust towards Wind. And to provoke her trust towards Mo Xian. Yi Qing Luo scoffed, "So what?" Imperial Palace's granny frowned as she didn't expect Yi Qing Luo's heart to be so firm. Imperial Palace's granny, you're indeed old. I'm sick of your tricks 10 years ago. Yi Qing Luo gave Imperial Palace's granny a disdainful glance. "The reason why I'm here is to bring Wind away. If you want me to take 3 strikes, be quick and don't waste time." Feng Ling's first strike wasn't soft at all. Her chest was still trembling in pain. If she continued to waste time with Imperial Palace's granny, she probably wouldn't be able to take Feng Ling's second strike. Imperial Palace's granny's eyes darkened as she sneered, "Granny, I want to see how unyielding you are." She stopped speaking and looked at wind chimes beside her. "Young Ling, second move." Feng Ling's face was ferocious, and her eyes were filled with intense hatred. She flipped her hands, and the silk cloth billowed in her palms. After that, a strand of powerful profound energy shot out from within his body. Feng Ling's face was filled with viciousness as she sneered and directed all her energy towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. The horrifying profound qi was like a monstrous wave that engulfed Yi Qing Luo in a split second. Feng Ling's second move was extremely ruthless. Compared to the power of the first move, it was many times stronger. The Imperial Palace's granny looked at her granddaughter's profound rank with satisfaction, as well as that terrifying power, and nodded in satisfaction. Feeling this powerful force, he felt the overwhelming force corroding him. Yi Qing Luo wasn't flustered or fearful at all. This was especially so when he saw how the old woman in the Imperial Palace looked at wind chimes with admiration. She narrowed her eyes, and a sly and mocking sneer flashed past her long and narrow eyes. The devouring flame fan in his hand quietly opened. Chi, who had received Yi Qing Luo's gaze, was ready to strike. Yi Qing Luo had never been one to sit still and wait for death. To let her take 3 moves from Feng Ling obediently? Hee. Not only would she not take 3 moves from Feng Ling obediently, she also wanted to save Wind Ling unscathed. The first move was aimed at Feng Ling, and she wouldn't use her full strength to kill her directly in one move. In order to make the Imperial Palace's granny and Feng Ling let down their guard, Yiqing Luo had forcefully held on and endured that move. Indeed, it was as Yiqing Luo had expected. Chapter 1472. Feng Ling's second attack had already blanketed the area. The terrifying sharp edge was like a sharp blade that could kill everything in the world, making it impossible for anyone to hide. She clenched the glower flame fan tightly as she prepared for the next step of action. Bam! Boom boom boom! 2 deafening sounds spread from all directions. The entire raging flame nest shook. The ground, which had already cracked, once again cracked open like a spider web. Soon after, the thin crack in the spider web suddenly exploded. Gravel flew everywhere as a gush of powerful energy made one aghast. But Yiqing Luo had a dazed look on her face. Looking at her surroundings, that terrifying power was constantly lingering around her, but no matter what, it was unable to harm her. She was even more dazed. She had not even had the time to make a move. Suddenly, Yiqing Luo's body felt light as a strong pulling force pulled her backwards. Yiqing Luo had yet to struggle when an elegant sandalwood scent entered her nose. In a split second, it made her restless heart calm down. Her soft back leaned against a burning chest. She felt a warmth which she had never felt before. A strong and powerful arm circled around her waist and hugged her tightly. Yiqing Luo's devastatingly beautiful face revealed a joyful smile. This warmth, this aura, it made one feel at ease. Her lips curled up slightly as she speedily turned around and her hands wrapped around the neck of the person behind her, a Xian. It was her Xian. He had come. Yiqing Luo's charming eyes were filled with a watery luster. She met Dmo Xian's peach blossom eyes, which seemed to carry thousands of tender feelings. 4 pairs of eyes met and everything was silent. Under his gaze, Yiqing Luo had a kind of feeling that there were only the 2 of them in this world. Dmo Xian tightened the young lady's soft body in his arms as he deeply inhaled the fragrance from her body, until he felt her warmth. Dmo Xian's restless heart then calmed down slightly. The young lady in his arms was stained with red blood. He could no longer differentiate if this blood was Feng Ling's or her own. Dmo Xian could clearly feel the viscous liquid in his palms when he hugged the young lady. His pupils constricted, and a cold and murderous expression appeared on his peerless face. His thin lips moved slightly. His mellow voice was filled with concern and worry, as well as unconcealable pain and annoyance. Lil Luo I'm late, Xian. Yiqing Luo smiled like a flower as she hooked her arms around his neck and tiptoed to kiss his lips forcefully. It's not late, I've been waiting for you. Dmo Xian tightened his arms. However, he was worried that he would touch her wound, so he slowly loosened his grip. I'm sorry. Dmo Xian's warm kisses slowly imprinted on her forehead, glabella, eyes. With his guilt, Yiqing Luo suddenly felt a surge of warmth in her heart. Although, he kept telling himself in his heart, if Dmo Xian sensed that she was in danger and rushed over, sandwiched between her and the Imperial Palace granny, he would definitely be in a dilemma. He only wanted to rely on himself to solve the crisis in front of him and bring Kitty Li and Ah Feng away safely. Don't let Dmo Xian get involved. But in the deepest part of her heart, she still hoped that Dmo Xian would appear, to be able to descend from the sky like a deity at this moment. Only, this kind of warm moment would not last for long. After the whirlpool dissipated, Imperial Palace Granny and Feng Ling could clearly see that valiant barrier which had blocked Feng Ling's attack. Chapter 1473. Feng Ling's face turned as pale as paper, as though she had suffered a blow, as she staggered backwards. Brother D. A broken voice spilled out from her mouth. Feng Ling's eyes gazed at Dmo Xian's direction in a daze, as she stretched out her hand. Brother D. Brother D. However, the man behind the barrier didn't even shift his gaze towards Feng Ling. Feng Ling's hand, which was frozen in mid-air, curled up one by one, as it shrank back. Imperial Palace's granny's eyes were gloomy, as her chilly gaze piercingly pierced the two who were hugging each other. But unfortunately, the two of them were in a lovey-dovey mood, as though they couldn't tolerate everything around them. Imperial Palace's granny's heart was filled with anger, as she screamed in a sharp voice, "Mo Xian! Come over here!" That voice broke through the barrier which Dmo Xian had conjured, as it fell into their ears. Dmo Xian frowned slightly, as his purple robe fluttered, as he kept that barrier. "Mo Xian, this is your attitude when you see Granny." Imperial Palace's granny narrowed her sinister eyes, as she berated. "Granny, don't blame Brother D." Feng Ling immediately pleaded for Dmo Xian, as a pair of watery beautiful eyes gazed at Dmo Xian. Imperial Palace's granny heard her precious granddaughter's voice, as her expression softened. Following that, she suppressed her anger, as she stared coldly at Dmo Xian. "On account of Xiao Ling's plea for you, Granny will not haggle over your impoliteness. Now let go of that little vixen." "Granny." Dmo Xian's cold voice suppressed Imperial Palace's granny's voice. Yiqing Luo felt Dmo Xian's imposing manner, as it continued to rise. The terrifying aura merged with that majestic aura. The surrounding air froze at this instance. This was Yiqing Luo's first time seeing this kind of Dmo Xian. The Dmo Xian in front of her was always a living evildoer appearance. But this time, she saw a different Dmo Xian. This was a sign of Dmo Xian's anger. Imperial Palace's granny's expression sunk. "Mo Xian, are you going against Granny because of that little vixen?" Grandma's face darkened. "Mo Xian, are you going to go against Grandma for that little vixen?" "She is not a vixen, her name is Yiqing Luo. This lord does not wish to hear any insult to my beloved woman from Grandma's mouth." Dmo Xian's cold voice was sonorous and powerful. He looked coldly at the Imperial Palace's old granny. There was no longer any respect on his face. "Mo Xian." Imperial Palace's grandma stared at Dmo Xian in disbelief, unable to believe that Dmo Xian would actually say such words. Dmo Xian's eyes were icy cold and his majestic imposing manner was daunting. "Grandma, this lord respects you as an elder, hence there are many things in the Imperial Palace that this lord can turn a blind eye to. On account of Grandma's face, this lord has also tolerated Xiao Ling." But Dmo Xian's expression sunk and the icy cold aura around him had already sunk to the bottom. "Grandma, you shouldn't have touched this lord's reverse scale." The Imperial Palace's grandma took a step back in shock under the gaze of those cold peach blossom eyes. In this heaven and earth, the only person this lord wants to protect is Lil Luo alone. Dmo Xian slowly released Yiqing Luo's waist as his purple sleeves fluttered slightly. Two gusts of hurricanes revolved around him. He took a step forward. The innate arrogance seemed to be above the heaven and earth. It made one subconsciously want to kneel down and worship. Chapter 1474. If the heavens hurt her, I will definitely go against the heavens. Following this sonorous and forceful oath, two hurricanes, transformed into enormous waves that shook the heavens, and mixed with vast and boundless profound energy, suddenly exploded outwards. Two hurricanes collided with the profound energy. Immediately, it went straight towards the direction of Imperial Palace's granny. Imperial Palace's granny's eyes were filled with rage and astonishment. "Mo Xian, you really want to break ties with Granny for a fox, a woman? Thinking of Dmo Xian's gaze earlier, Imperial Palace's Granny swallowed the 3 words, vixen, back into her stomach. Imperial Palace's Granny couldn't believe it. An outsider, a woman whom she had only known for a few months. Dmo Xian actually made a move against her. This was the first time in her life that Dmo Xian disrespected her. Granny. Feng Ling couldn't believe her own eyes. Brother D, do you know what you're doing? That's Granny, our beloved Granny. Feng Ling had always relied on Imperial Palace's Granny's position in the Imperial Palace. This was Dmo Xian's respect towards Imperial Palace's Granny. But for Yi Qing Luo, Dmo Xian didn't even acknowledge Granny. In his heart, was Yi Qing Luo really that important? So important that he could even abandon Granny and the Imperial Palace. Bam bam bam. Rumble, earth-shaking collisions resounded wave after wave. The sound almost spread throughout the entire flame nest. Smoke filled the air and the surroundings were covered by flying sand and stones. But Yi Qing Luo still saw it clearly. The direction where Dmo Xian attacked. It had completely turned into nothingness. In the nothingness, in that transparent barrier, 2 figures were extremely conspicuous. Yi Qing Luo was completely shocked by this scene. She was deeply shocked. What kind of power was this? It was close to destroying the heavens and earth. Even though she was protected behind Dmo Xian, she could still clearly feel that powerful and terrifying profound energy. Looking at the flat ground, Imperial Palace's Granny who had barely formed the barrier was already in a sorry state. Yi Qing Luo had crossed hands with Imperial Palace's Granny. She was very clear on how powerful Imperial Palace's Granny was. Imperial Palace's Granny must be above sky profound, a realm which she had never come into contact with. But under Dmo Xian's light attack, he was in such a sorry state that he didn't even have the room to fight back. Dmo Xian. Just how powerful was he? It was only until now that the 2 people in the boundary understood that Dmo Xian was serious. Hurt Yi Qing Luo. That was touching his reverse scale. For Yi Qing Luo, Dmo Xian even dared to defy the heavens. Not to mention, it was just them. Dmo Xian's reckless action for Yi Qing Luo made Feng Ling's heart ache. The man she loved, in front of her, gave everything to another woman. How cruel was this to her? Tears welled up in Feng Ling's eyes. Brother D, you actually dared to lay a hand on Grandma. Aren't you afraid that this matter will spread to the Imperial Palace? What will the disciples of the Imperial Palace think of you? Big Brother D. For a woman, just for a woman, you disregarded our many years of friendship and Granny's kindness in raising you. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. As she laughed, she began to sob uncontrollably. Imperial Palace's Granny gently pulled Feng Ling into her arms as her cold eyes were filled with a chilly intent. If I didn't care about Granny, this strike would not just be a warning. Chapter 1475. Her resolute words were like sharp silver needles. Needles after needles pierced Wind Chime's heart. Dmo Xian was serious. He really wanted to kill them. That attack earlier was just a warning from Dmo Xian. For Yi Qing Luo, Dmo Xian would really disregard everything, right? Wind Chime took a few steps back while she looked like she was about to fall. He tripped over a boulder and fell backwards. Imperial Palace's Granny hurriedly supported Feng Ling as her eyes stared coldly at Dmo Xian, speaking in a chilly tone, Mo Xian, Granny is too disappointed in you. She hugged Feng Ling tightly and her breathing quickened. Thick anger was released from her body. Following that, Imperial Palace's Granny's gaze turned towards Yi Qing Luo who was behind Dmo Xian. Those sinister eyes were like those of a venomous snake, causing one's hair to stand on end. What a good little girl. Just by relying on her beauty, she actually managed to make the successor that I have painstakingly cultivated fall head over heels for. Good, good. Great. When Yiqing Luo heard what the Imperial Palace's old granny said, the expression on her face didn't change at all. She quietly leaned on Dmo Xian's side, her slender wrist circling around his firm waist. Her heart was filled with sweetness. She remembered that she had asked Dmo Xian before. If Fengling really bullied her, what would he do? He said that she was his only reverse scale. Now, Dmo Xian had used his own actions to show that his words were not just empty words. Dmo Xian's deep affection. The words of the Imperial Palace's old granny meant nothing to her. Dmo Xian tightened his grip on the person in his arms, his imposing manner did not diminish as he stared coldly at Imperial Palace's grandma. Grandma, this lord is too disappointed in you. You! The Imperial Palace's granny's eyes darkened as she gritted her teeth. The granny that this lord knows is extremely capable. When this lord is not around, she is able to handle all the affairs in the Imperial Palace properly. Dmo Xian opened his mouth indifferently, his tone carrying a tinge of coldness. But Yiqing Luo could hear it. Rather than saying it was cold, it would be better to say that Dmo Xian was extremely disappointed with Imperial Palace's granny's behavior today. But, because of a few words from wind chimes, you killed the woman I value. Dmo Xian's tone gradually rose, revealing a trace of anger. You can disregard our friendship of many years for Fengling. For Lil Luo, I can do everything. Every single word spat out from Dmo Xian's thin lips. The Imperial Palace's granny swayed slightly, her fingers clenched into fists. Good. Very good. The extremely hoarse voice was extremely ear-piercing. As soon as the Imperial Palace's grandma's voice fell, a trace of ruthlessness flashed in her sinister eyes. In the next instant, she grabbed Fengling's body and soared into the sky like a giant bat with its wings spread. Dmo Xian subconsciously hugged Yiqing Luo tightly as he opened up a barrier. However, the Imperial Palace's granny suddenly raised a strange sneer, her black cloak fluttering in the air. Boom! An earth-shattering giant wave surged up ferociously. The direction of the attack wasn't Yiqing Luo. Instead, not far away from Yiqing Luo, outside the battlefield. Kitty! Yiqing Luo's vision fell towards that direction. It was Kitty Li who was leaning against a huge rock, half lying down. Just as Yiqing Luo was prepared to receive Fengling's second strike, she specially asked Chi to place Kitty Li at a safe place, before going to save Wind. At this moment, Chi was guarding beside Wind. There was no time to rush to Kitty Li's side. Chapter 1476. Lil Luo, Dmo Xian's face sunk as he stretched out his hand to grab Yiqing Luo's body. You can't block that move. His long arm pulled Yiqing Luo backwards as he moved towards Kitty Li. But Imperial Palace's granny's attack was extremely swift. Under Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo's pull. By the time Dmo Xian rushed over, that profound chi from Imperial Palace's granny was as heavy as Mount Tai, exploding towards Kitty Li overbearingly. Kitty, Yiqing Luo's pupils dilated. Looking at the dust on the ground, smoke curling up, pervading everything in front of her. Yiqing Luo seemed to have lost all her strength as she fell into Dmo Xian's arms. Kitty! In Yiqing Luo's heart, a raging hatred and anger surged from the bottom of her heart. Gradually, it became boiling. Her kitty had just handed over the rest of her life to her kitty. So fast. Yiqing Luo's eyes suddenly shone with an enchanting red glow. Old woman. Man! Yiqing Luo's hoarse voice shouted out these 3 words sharply. Her entire body tensed up as she leaned against Dmo Xian's arms, trembling slightly. Her tightly curled 5 fingers, each of them turning white. I want you to be buried with Kitty. Yiqing Luo struggled, wanting to rush towards the direction of Imperial Palace's granny. But her waist was held tightly by Dmo Xian. Lil Luo, calm down. Dmo Xian imprisoned Yiqing Luo, looking at the young lady whose eyes were already dyed red, his brows knitted tightly. His hand pressed Yiqing Luo's wrist, checking her pulse. Overlord lad, you've noticed. Suddenly, a voice rang beside Dmo Xian's ear. Dmo Xian was stunned as he reacted. This voice, wasn't it the guardian of Yiqing Luo's Azure Dew bracelet, Old Man Song? Dmo Xian's brows knitted tightly as he meditated in his heart, Lil Luo, she. Old Man Song sighed deeply. Actually, before Kitty Li and Las Luo signed the life and death contract, I sensed a gust of profound qi, attempting to infiltrate Las Luo's body. Dmo Xian's expression turned grave. Coincidentally, the Luo girl activated the power of the divine tool and fused it with the profound heart jade. With the addition of the bloodline inheritance, the Luo girl was able to advance and forcefully block the profound qi outside. Old Man Song's voice became heavier and heavier. The scene of Granny attacking Kitty Li in the Imperial Palace gave the mysterious energy an opportunity to take advantage of, as soon as Old Man Song's voice fell. Dmo Xian could feel the young lady in his arms, the flame around her, suddenly rose sharply in this instance. Her scarlet eyes were suffused with a bewitching red glow, making her look extremely bewitching. Her slender hand whipped up a gust of wind and slammed down on his chest. Little Luo, Dmo Xian clasped her wrist and easily dissolved the profound qi that Yiqing Luo released. Yiqing Luo's expression was tainted with a sliver of madness as her eyes were suffused with a cold glint. I want to kill you. Kill you. She muttered in a low voice that sounded like it came from hell. Little Luo, Dmo Xian's eyes were frozen as his peach blossom eyes narrowed slightly. Seeing that his voice was unable to awaken Yiqing Luo, he clenched his fists tightly and suddenly hugged Yiqing Luo's waist tightly as he clasped her lower jaw and kissed her directly. The warm kiss scorched Yiqing Luo's icy cold lips. His kiss was extremely forceful, rude and overbearing. And there was a slight tingling sensation. Yiqing Luo's nose gave out a soft moan. The red glow in her eyes gradually faded. Chapter 1477. Kitty. Yiqing Luo's eyes suddenly cleared up. Her line of sight met with Dmo Xian's worried peach blossom eyes. The warm sensation on her lips made her face turn red as she raised her fist and pushed Dmo Xian's chest. You. What are you doing? Hearing her voice finally returning to normal, Dmo Xian's arms held her tightly in his embrace. Your body. Do you sense any strange presence? Strange presence. Yiqing Luo was puzzled, but she obediently circulated her profound qi to sense her body and immediately shook her head. No? What's the matter? Dmo Xian's brows creased tightly as he stared deeply at the young lady in his arms. After some time, he slowly shook his head. Nothing. Saying that, he held her tightly in his arms again. Yiqing Luo was dumbfounded. She opened her mouth and was about to say something when she suddenly heard a scream. Hey! Stinky hooligan! Where are your hands touching? What followed was the crisp sound of a slap. Kitty! This voice made Yiqing Luo immediately turn her head towards Kitty Li's direction. Right! Earlier, she saw Imperial Palace's granny launching an extremely strong attack towards Kitty Li, who had no energy at all. Then. She had no memory at all. When she looked towards Kitty Lee's side, Yiqing Luo was still racking her brains as she instantly forgot about searching her memories. Instructor Mo, Yiqing Luo looked at the white-robed young man who appeared in front of her in astonishment. The young man who had one arm around Kitty Lee and the other covering his face, wasn't he? Mo. Why was he here? Not only Mo, Gue Wu, Instructor Luo and Instructor Lee were also here. The few instructors couldn't conceal the astonishment in their eyes when they saw the place which had been razed to the ground. Gue Wu walked over slowly as his malicious eyes swept past Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian without any emotion on his face. Following that, he directly strode towards Imperial Palace's granny. Master Gue Wu. Yiqing Luo frowned as she immediately opened her mouth to dissuade Gue Wu from approaching Imperial Palace's granny. But her arm tightened as she turned her head. Dmo Xian shook his head. Yiqing Luo was stunned as she looked at Gue Wu, who had already walked to the front of the Imperial Palace's old granny and stopped her words of persuasion. That's right, Mo was able to easily block Granny's powerful attack and save Kitty Lee. With Gue Wu's strength, he would definitely not lose to the Imperial Palace's grandma. The Imperial Palace's granny's eyes were cold and sinister. Her gaze was like a sharp blade. He did not expect these ants to be so lucky. Each and every one of them could be saved. Her cold, malicious eyes glared at the extremely handsome young man in the white robe, and she secretly guessed his identity. Someone who could block her attack. There weren't many of them in the Nirvana realm. Who was this young man? As she pondered, she did not even realize that Gue Wu had already walked in front of her. Holy Mother, I haven't seen you for so many years. Have you become so weak that you don't even have your guard up? A deep voice came into the ears of the Imperial Palace's grandma. That form of address made the expression of the Imperial Palace's grandma freeze. Her gaze immediately fixed on Gue Wu. You. The hoarse voice revealed a trace of doubt. Imperial Palace's grandma's malicious brows suddenly contracted. Gue Wu. I didn't expect Holy Mother to still remember me. Gue Wu's expression was calm and indifferent. Chapter 1478. She didn't say the words, realm of the dead. Gue Wu's calm gaze swept across the desolate surroundings. The Holy Mother's temper is still the same as before. She's completely fearless. Causing such a huge commotion, does she want to return? Granny's eyes flashed. That little girl is my student. Gue Wu shot a glance at Yiqing Luo. It's just a young lady and yet Holy Mother had to personally take action. I wonder how my student had angered Holy Mother. The Imperial Palace's grandma's face darkened, and a cold light flashed in her eyes. She did not answer, but Feng Ling, who was protected behind her, stuck her head out. She pursed her lips tightly and said in displeasure, Grandma, who is he? Why do I keep calling you Virgin Mary? Yiqing Luo, that little slut's reinforcements, is she trying to claim connections with you? Young Ling. The Imperial Palace's granny shouted and pulled wind chime behind her. Shut up. Gue Wu quirked his eyebrows and cast a glance at Feng Ling. That's your granddaughter. The Imperial Palace's granny quickly covered Feng Ling even more tightly and said in a gloomy tone, You'd better stay by your student's side at all times. Once he finished speaking, he tightened his arms around Feng Ling, turned around, and with one move, he appeared 328 feet away. While she was treating Win's injuries, Yiqing Luo, who was paying attention to Gue Wu and Imperial Palace's granny's situation, looked in astonishment at the direction where Imperial Palace's granny had disappeared. Gue Wu and Imperial Palace's granny know each other. After a long while, Dmo Xian didn't respond. She raised her eyes and looked at Dmo Xian. But she saw Dmo Xian's grave expression, as though he was pondering over something. Yiqing Luo's brows creased slightly as she gently put down Win's arm, stood up and stuck close to Dmo Xian. She wrapped her arms around Dmo Xian's. Dmo Xian regained his senses and his lips curled up as he wrapped his arms around her waist. What's the matter? Right from the start, you've been behaving strangely. Can't you tell me what you're thinking about? Yiqing Luo raised her finger and gently caressed Dmo Xian's frowning brows. Dmo Xian remained silent for a moment. Something related to me. Yiqing Luo tilted her head as she leaned close to his face. Her slender fingers traced the creases on Dmo Xian's brows. You will only reveal such a complicated expression when it's related to me. You. Dmo Xian's thin lips moved as he looked at Yiqing Luo's calm gaze. In the end, he sighed and narrated the incident of Yiqing Luo losing control in a concise and comprehensive manner. Lil Luo, the mysterious yin qi may have always existed in a certain place on your body. Once there's an opportunity, it will seize the opportunity to enter. Dmo Xian's brows creased tightly. Earlier I asked you to feel if there's any unusual aura in your body, was to ascertain if you could detect the profound yin qi entering your body this time round. Yiqing Luo's expression gradually turned grave. After the last time he lost control. She didn't sense any trace of mysterious yin qi in her body. He couldn't even sense the slightest bit of mysterious yin qi. It was the same this time. What was going on? Where on earth was the profound yin qi hiding, to be able to appear and disappear so mysteriously? Lil Luo, remove the god relic. Before we find out the reason, don't forcefully activate the profound qi in your body. Dmo Xian solemnly locked onto Yiqing Luo's wrist. His gaze was fixed on the azure aqua ring on Yiqing Luo's fingertip. Today's matter, I guarantee it will not happen again. He raised his hand and his slender fingers, gently caressed Yiqing Luo's fingers. His fingers hooked and removed the azure aqua ring from her fingertip. On your hand, as long as I leave this ring, that's enough. He held her hand and brought it to his lips. Chapter 1479. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips tightly. Her heart was extremely complicated. Why? How could the profound yin qi be hidden so strangely? Moreover, it would appear when she activated the power of the god relic to increase her own strength. And she didn't notice it at all. Towards the profound yin qi, she was extremely sensitive. Like Shengguan Liuli, Yiqing Qian and the others, after they made a deal with the dark forces, she could clearly sense the profound yin qi on them. But when it came to herself, she couldn't sense anything strange at all. What on earth was going on? The profound yin qi which had been pestering her and trying to control her, where was it hiding? Alright, stop thinking about it. Dmo Xian's warm large palm covered the back of her head, forcing her head to lean against his chest. This god relic, I'll temporarily keep it safe for you. As for the matter regarding the profound yin qi in your body, I'll investigate clearly. Absorbing the man's elegant aura. Yiqing Luo's heart felt as though it was wrapped in a hot spring. Extremely at ease. She closed her eyes and nodded in his arms, and she stretched out her arms and circled around his firm waist. On the other side, Kitty Lee's face was flushed red, a pair of lively beautiful eyes stared fiercely at the young man in front of her. You're still not going to move aside. Zhou Mo's arm was around Kitty Lee's waist. A pair of devilish phoenix eyes rose slightly, as he leaned forward a few inches, his warm breath sprayed onto Kitty Lee's tender cheeks. Are you sure? You want me to move aside? That scorching breath made Kitty Lee extremely uncomfortable. Especially that face that was as handsome as a god, it made Kitty Lee's little heart beat uncontrollably. Yes, yes, yes. Kitty Lee blushed, both hands propped on Zomo's chest. Men and women should not touch each other. Your hand. On my body, you have to take responsibility. Zomo's lips curled as he gave a devilish smile. Then I'll take responsibility. You. Kitty Lee's eyes suddenly widened, as she flew into a rage out of humiliation, opened her mouth and bit Zomo's nose, as she mumbled incoherently, "Who wants you to take responsibility? You frivolous hedonistic son. Kitty Lee doesn't want you to take responsibility." Hiss. Zomo gasped in pain. Only then did Kitty Lee let go of his nose. Staring at him with her beautiful round eyes, she pretended to be fierce and snorted, "Let's see if you still dare to bully Kitty. Kitty will bite you to death." Zomo touched his nose and could clearly feel a bite mark on the tip of his finger. It really is a little wild cat. Zomo narrowed his almond-shaped eyes, revealing an evil aura. The fiercer and more difficult to train a wild cat, the more interested I am. His rosy red lips curled into a charming and seductive arc. Kitty Lee's chest tightened, and her cheeks felt even hotter. Suddenly, Zomo's slender fingers clasped her head. A refreshing bamboo fragrance wafted into his nose. Her lips were forcefully sealed by him. Kitty Lee widened her eyes and struggled, trying to push Zomo away. However, that seemingly slender body was still in a daze. His strength was so great that she couldn't move him at all. "Now, do you still want me to let go?" A seductive voice sounded beside her slightly swaying black cat ears. Kitty Lee couldn't help but shake her ears. He actually. Kitty Lee's cheeks turned red, and her embarrassment turned into anger. She was so angry that her eyes turned red. In the cat clan, if a man touched a woman's body, she would have to marry the man. Not to mention being treated so intimately by a man. Chapter 1480. Frivolous Man. Let go of Kitty. Kitty Lee's reddened eyes stared fiercely at the man in front of her. This was simply infuriating. She wanted to use her sharp teeth to bite this man to death. "All right, as you wish." Zomo didn't insist as his lips curled into a smile which didn't look like a smile. He had just finished his words when he released the hand which was encircling Kitty Lee's waist. "Ah!" Kitty Lee, who lost the support of Zomo's strength, felt her legs wobbling. His whole body fell backwards. She was injured by the Imperial Palace's granny and used her own blood to sign a life and death contract with Yiqing Luo. Kitty Lee didn't have any bit of energy to stand firmly. Just as Kitty Lee shut her eyes tightly, thinking that she would fall heavily onto the ground, a strong arm crossed her waist. He easily caught hold of her body. Once again, she fell into that broad and warm embrace. Above her head, Zomo's hoarse laughter was heard. "Little wild cat, you can't even stand properly without me. Do you still want me to let you go?" Kitty Lee's ears shook sensitively as she raised her head and stared angrily at him. Meeting his teasing gaze, Kitty Lee bit her lower lip as she gave a cold harumph and shifted her gaze away, not saying a word. Zomo laughed even more joyfully. His chest was heaving up and down from his laughter. His large palm covered Kitty Lee's head as he gently rubbed her pointy ears. Kitty Lee's ears shook even more violently. That slender fingers brushed past her ears lightly. This touch was totally different from Yiqing Luo's touch. When Yiqing Luo touched her head, Kitty Lee was filled with satisfaction. And when Zomo touched her head, she inexplicably felt her face turning red, as though her most shameful thing was touched by him. Her heart, like a drum, rumbled loudly. Suddenly, Kitty Lee's legs felt light. She was hugged by Zomo's waist. Subconsciously, her arms wrapped tightly around Zomo's neck to maintain her balance. "That's good." Zhou Mo smiled with his eyes curved, his tone was filled with adoration, as though he was praising his own pet. Kitty Lee's cheeks turned red as she clenched her teeth fiercely. Thinking that she could not stand, she forcefully resisted the urge to pinch his neck with her claws. Kitty Lee snorted coldly from her nostrils as she looked at Zhou Mo's smug face. Then, she lowered her head and no longer spoke to him. Zhou Mo laughed even more happily. That devilishly charming face was like that of a deity, handsome enough to topple cities. Because of this battle, everything within a radius of 100 miles of the Flame Nest's headquarters had become a barren wasteland. Instructor Luo and Instructor Li looked at Zhou Mo, who was laughing happily and teasing the little girl in his arms, and then looked at Gue Wu, who was standing not far away, thinking about something. Following that, his gaze fell onto Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian. Their gazes towards Yiqing Luo were filled with shock and astonishment. It was hard to believe that this desolate wasteland was actually created by such a little girl. Not long ago, all the students had arrived at the wooden shed. There were no more beds left. Lunch was over. It was time to rest. The students of the devil class had returned. But there were 2 people missing. When they asked the devil class students, no one answered their questions. Even after 1 hour of rest time, Yiqing Luo had yet to return. Devil class's class monitor couldn't sit still as he disregarded the instructor's orders and forcefully headed towards the vicinity of the Flame Nest to search for Yiqing Luo's traces. Just at this moment, the entire Flame Nest shook and there was an obvious fluctuation of profound qi not too far away. And the imposing manner was extremely terrifying, definitely not the profound qi which ordinary cultivators could release. Gue Wu recalled the barrier which was touched not long ago, and that black cat's tail. Chapter 1481. Accompanying them were a few students from the devil class. It was also because of those students that they managed to contact Kitty Lee with the mercenary group badge. Only the few of them could rush over in time. Yiqing Luo. Instructor Luo was stunned for some time and finally found his voice. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva and looked at Yiqing Luo, earlier that person. And you. When Yiqing Luo heard Instructor Luo's voice, she popped her head out from Dmo Xian's arms. It's just an old friend who had a little argument. It's fine. She curled her lips and revealed a faint smile. Fortunately, Master Gue Wu and the instructors arrived in time. An old friend. Just a dispute. Would a simple dispute flatten the interior of the fire lair and turn it into ruins? The 2 instructors looked at each other and suddenly felt that this student's identity was not simple. No wonder the usually cold and emotionless Master Ghost Marshal would personally come over to look for Yiqing Luo after he sensed this powerful profound qi fluctuation. Seeing that Yiqing Luo didn't want to explain further, Instructor Luo didn't ask any more questions. Qing Luo. Long Yunzhan speedily dashed in front of Yiqing Luo as he raised his hand, trying to support Yiqing Luo's shoulder to check on her injuries. But the moment he raised his hand, he thought of Dmo Xian. His hand stiffened, and he immediately retracted it. Are you alright? Yiqing Luo was just about to open her mouth when her waist suddenly tightened. Dmo Xian's long arms tightened, as though he was making a declaration, as he used all his strength to rub Yiqing Luo into his embrace. He looked up with his peach blossom eyes, his thin lips slightly raised. I will take good care of Lil Luo, her. Long Yunzhan was stunned on the spot as his azure blue eyes shifted from Dmo Xian to the young lady nestled in Dmo Xian's arms and he slowly lowered his eyes, not saying a single word. Yan Xiao Yi and Tong Ziqing followed closely behind and when they saw Yiqing Luo's clothes which were stained with blood, their hearts ached. The 2 of them didn't care that Yiqing Luo was still being hugged tightly by Dmo Xian. One by one side, they held on to Yiqing Luo's palm, as they softly comforted Yiqing Luo in a choked-up voice. Their faces were filled with unconcealable concern. Looking at the trio's worried faces, Yiqing Luo's expression turned gentle. She struggled for a few times and got out of Dmo Xian's embrace. "Don't worry, I'm fine. It's just some superficial wounds. I'll be able to jump around after a few days of rest." Yiqing Luo lowered her head and looked at her messy self. He engaged in a chase with the Imperial Palace's granny. Then, he endured another attack from wind chimes. The injuries on her body could be considered serious. It just so happened that she used the power of the divine weapon and profound jade heart to increase her profound rank. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth flowed through his limbs and every pore in his body. His internal injuries had also been healed. The current Yiqing Luo indeed only had some superficial injuries. "What are you thinking? Why did you suddenly come here alone and get hurt by that old woman?" Yan Xiaoyi furrowed her brows, looking extremely displeased. "What's the matter? Can't you tell everyone and solve it together?" Tong Ziqing's expression was gloomy as she breathed out cold air from her nose. "I think you totally don't treat us as brothers. What kind of matters do you take on by yourself without saying a word? Where do you put us? Or do you find it interesting to see us searching for you like crazy, worrying about you and running around for you?" Ziqing. Long Yunzhan berated harshly. "You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."